Agnostic atheists?
Hmm.
Are they the same or?
Yeah, it's an honest position of realizing that we can't be absolutely sure that there is no God, but we also do not believe that there is for because we don't have sufficient reasons.
So you're contradicting yourself.
No, no. Okay. If someone does not believe in God, there's two ways that you can define that word atheist. It's either you can say I don't believe in a God, or you can say that there absolutely is no God, which I sometimes will say when I'm sort of in a pissy mood. But both on the atheist and the theist side, we have to understand that we cannot know whether or not a God exists if on the assumption that a God is a supernatural entity that we have no access to. It might exist and we just don't have knowledge of it.
Okay. So I have a question. So where do you believe that our morality comes from?
It comes from the precursors come from nature. Certain
Nature.
things like cooperation and reciprocal altruism. Do you know that term?
No.
Altruism is just being nice to somebody, right? So, reciprocal means you expect to get it back. So you're nice to somebody with the expectation that they'll do the same in time. And this is the sort of thing that you find in early cultures and actually in animals too, with terms of sharing the hunt, sharing food, sharing
So
protection responsibilities, those types of things.
so I have a question. Do you believe that humans commit more kind acts, or do you believe that humans sin more than commit kind acts? What do you think?
I've not seen studies on this, but I would think that we do more kindness than
There's no absolute
unkindness.
way that you think that's true. There's no way.
Okay, well, I have my head and you have your head, so
There's absolute
let's understand each other. So why do you think that I can't think that?
The reason I think you it's impossible to think that humans commit more kind acts than heinous acts is because even if it's not directly heinous, it can be passive heinous acts, which means like if I walk by someone who's desperately asking me for money and I have $1 in my pocket and I have money and I don't give it to them, that's disgusting, quite frankly. And it's the subtle things that we do that are not technically like aggressively bad, but it's very passively aggressive indeed. And humans are greedy, humans are lust, humans sin all day every day. We steal, we lie. It's a world full of evil. It's not a
I
world.
think you've been in the wrong group of people, if
Oh,
that's what
most
you think.
definitely.
Well,
I've been in reality.
first off, understand that there's a middle ground, right? So
Middle ground where
and heinous is a very strong word. So
absolutely
let's look
I
at
live in
this
reality.
as if it's a spectrum. There's heinous bad, there's tremendous good, and then there's basically a lot of neutral activity in the middle too. So why do you think we do more on the negative side? I other than just the state that we do. Why? How did you
Well, like
come
I
to
said,
that?
it,
How'd
it's
you come to
it's
that opinion?
it's because humans have a natural, how do I say it, like a nature to be. I don't want to generalize everyone as greedy, but I want to say humans have a nature to be very greedy. Humans have a nature to be very, very yeah, just wanting more, for ourselves. And that's really the biggest killer nowadays, just wanting more resources. And honestly, I think that we treat other people, terribly. When we have, we can give, and we don't. It's truly, it's bad, and I say majority of people do that. I mean, if you don't agree with me here, how much people, give back to the homeless people, how
Yeah.
much people support other people, it's bad, if our morals were truly really like good, we would at least spare $100 a year, maybe, going towards the homeless
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I like I say, I wish I had data to go on this, so this is off the top of my head.
I mean, I can go
So
around and
I mean
ask
I
maybe.
understand that um that reciprocal means there's also some selfishness, if you will, right,
There.
involved in that. Remember that Friends episode about when they were debating about if you could ever have a truly naturally good act. Um,
I heard about that.
yeah, it's a funny one, and they have actually a hard time coming up with a truly selfless act. So, I mean, you may be right on the broad sense of it. I can think of an evolutionary reason for
I mean,
being.
I understand why you're saying like obviously, like we would definitely humans would, be kind. I understand because, we get it back and it makes us feel good. But then again, when you have people at the top, you have you have I don't want to say presidents, but you have leaders that are constantly taking from, their people,
Yeah,
and doing things behind our backs, it's like do they really want the best for us? And it kind of creates this
yeah,
environment where you have the rich getting richer, the poor getting, poor, and you have this
yeah.
whole, thing that's completely messed up. So do we really get our morals from evolution? I think we get our morals from what benefits us better and the people that we know,
I don't think that looking to our leaders is a good representation of the average person, because
Absolutely
you
not.
got to have a
Absolutely not.
strong ego and some self interest there. I was going to say on the evolutionary, I could see some argument for a bias toward being more selfish, because the one of the strongest motivators we have is the urge to survive, right, to stay alive, and sometimes that comes at the expense of others.
Hmm.
However, with the example of taking food from others, if you take food from somebody else, they can then punish you in the future. So there's also reciprocal negatives, which is punishment, right? Especially if you get caught. So this is a big balance. It's a big spectrum, and it's a big balance. I I I think that, and this is again just my own personal
Yeah.
feeling, that most people that I meet are decent, typical
Fair enough.
typical people, and
Fair
and
enough.
I would say at the very least your use of the word heinous is overstated,
Well,
or,
the
or
reason I use that
overused.
word is because I've lived in a very tragic, place. I've lived in many tragic places. I've experienced extreme, how do not extreme, but I've experienced homelessness. I've experienced the very bottom of the bottom. And the reason I say this is because this is why I truly believe in God, because I have felt, true pain in my life. So it's like,
Yeah,
when I see this true pain, I look to it. It's like there is absolute when you've been there, you kind of see that there is really no morality at the bottom. There is no, hey, this is right, this is wrong. It's kind of survival of the fittest, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of like, and when you have, the leaders who aren't doing anything to help these communities, it's kind of like, where do we really get our morality from? It's kind of like everyone just wants to take and take and take. So
yeah.
it's that's why I believe, go on.
It's a real challenge, because if we were to solve things like homelessness, and whatever else you want to bring up, should food be a right and things like that,
Mm,
society has to make a decision to do that, and it
mm.
takes it takes money, and it takes willingness to pay taxes. Someone's got to pay for it, right? You're
I
not gonna
mean,
you're not gonna go past every other person, or even your own immediate family, and give
absolutely,
them all
but
your money. So there's got to be a middle ground. But
absolutely, but when you have the leaders who are supposed to set examples,
yeah,
you have these people spending, I think it's billions, or I don't know how much it's billions and billions on the military, but they don't have enough money to feed families. It's disgusting. So
yeah, that's a complex subject. So let me
yeah,
just
bro.
bring in. Was it? Should I call you paperclip, or what is that? An eraser or a paperclip? That symbol there.
Can I just talk? I'm 12 and can I just talk, please?
I'm sorry, I can't let you. It's not me. It's a TikTok thing. I wish I could. I really wish I could. Um. Let's. Oh, okay. So let's go with whoops. Okay, they popped out. So I hate to do that when somebody young comes in, especially when we have good conversations going.
Absolutely.
But what are you gonna do? Well, how do you think we can motivate people to be more kind to each other, and a little bit less self-centered?
Um,
What are your
the
thoughts on
reason
that?
honestly, the way I feel like we can motivate people is honestly, truly, I feel like believing in the Lord, you know. And the reason I say this is because it sounds very, cliche, like, hey, Jesus loves you, this. It's kind of like repetitive, but when I truly say that, people don't understand what I really mean by it. What I mean by Jesus loves you, follow this man is even if this man wasn't real, the thing, if you follow his character, if you follow the lovingness of somebody's character,
Hmm.
and you really try and take that and you put it into your own values, you really come out as a better person. You start to feel guilty, even when you lie. It's not even a heinous act, even when it's a white lie, so it's kind of like, how do I better myself? How can I make a difference? How can I treat people right? Because right now, God is not, he's not directly intervening with people's lives. He's giving us this freedom to do what we want, and that comes with a price. So it comes with the choice. Do we continue to take, or do we continue to follow, this example that the most popular person, ever, is a kind, warm-hearted person.
Well,
That's what I
here's
think.
the thing. I'm wondering. I mean, the things have not, in terms of how people treat each other, things
Yeah,
have not shifted. Well, they have shifted in the last 6 years, obviously, with
right.
with the current president and his previous previous administration, but mostly more recently. But I mean, going back like 20, 30, 40 years,
Yeah,
things have really not changed very much. And in the United States, at least, religious belief was about at the 90% level, and things have not gotten any better. So it doesn't seem to me like belief in God is a thing that's going to do it. Although I agree with you in terms of the good teachings of Jesus would be nice to be able to emulate. Um, but I don't see this as a religious
I mean, if you look at it from
having
the
that much
morality,
influence.
I mean, if you look at it from, yeah, I mean, you have to remember, people are going to say certain things to make themselves feel better about certain things. But if you truly follow the values, then you'll truly become a better person. If you're slacking on this and you say, oh, well, God's going to forgive me anyways, then it doesn't, people like to rely on that. It's an excuse, many, and I know many Christians who do that, there's atheists who are better than Christians who do that. So it's kind of like, you have to really discipline yourself and prosper through Christ, which is follow his values directly. If more people sincerely committed to the values that are instilled in that man, then you would see a lot better people. And I'm sure both of us can agree with that, because we have liars, we have people who think they can repent after doing, acts that are terrible. You have people, they don't even pick up, it's a world of lies, so you really have to sincerely commit to something in
Yeah.
order to see change. And that's through anything. You want to lose weight, you want to get abs, you want to get muscular, you have to commit to the gym. You can't go one day and say, oh, I'm going to slack, 2 days and then go. But no, it's every day, so that's what I think.
What do you think about the whole criticism of the word woke? That seems to be
uh
rather counterproductive currently, according to what you're
i
saying.
actually I actually don't even know what that means.
I mean,
Woke.
woke, it really means diversity and kindness and humanity, humanitarianism and things like that. Being aware and being nice to each other's
I mean,
to a
sure,
degree. There's an anti-racial bias.
I mean,
Um,
sure. If you use, if you want to say that, then I mean, if we rely on what humans, our nature, and if we don't have a higher sort of authority or someone to rely on to kind of, um, kind of look at and kind of idolize and see what we're doing wrong, or that guilt feeling. If we rely on, hey, if we rely on our natural human nature, then we're gonna get angry. If someone kills my unalives my brother, I'm gonna want to get revenge. But if I follow
yeah.
the teachings of Christ, it's kind of like love everyone no matter what. Is the best thing to do get revenge and go to jail, or is it to forgive, learn, and preach his name?
What if we had more of that in culture? I mean, I think
How
of
would we
the
do
of
it?
the Northwestern European countries that have very little religion, and
I, I,
they have more social programs. They help each other. I've heard. conservative people not criticize, but complain that why should they have to pay school taxes if they don't have kids, for example? These sort of
Right.
self-centered type of things. Um,
Right. But it all comes down to what the leaders of this country want to do, because quite frankly, we don't have a say in certain aspects of what we can our freedoms. It's kind of
yeah,
like, you have, for example, I don't want to get too political here, but Mexicans coming over, they're trying
right.
to provide for their family. Should we really kick them back out of land that humans said that it's theirs? It's a world. No one owns the,
Yeah.
the earth. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
Well,
when you
yeah.
instill
Well, we
human.
stole
Yeah.
it from the Native Americans. So
Yeah, it's not even anyone's to claim. The world
yeah,
is the world. It's everyone's. So when you have people, um, putting people in jail, for walking on land that they didn't create, that they didn't make, it's kind of like it's kind of like humans have, whoever's in charge is controlling of your life and your family's life. It's disgusting. So that's where I think morality and the higher and an authoritative figure comes in. And if everyone worships one authoritative figure, that's all good. Or yeah, like Jesus, we have a better society.
well,
It's
the
simple.
problem is not everybody does that, and
Absolutely, but I
because
think if more
you've
people
got
did.
good aspects of religion, you've got bad aspects of religion, but then you
Look,
also have many
man.
types of religions, and everybody's trying to get their own religion to be the one that's the dominant one, and that has caused violence and discrimination as
That's absolutely
as
true. But
long as
the thing is, though, you have to look into the followers. You have to look into the authenticity of certain religions. So if we go to, I don't know if it's Muslim or Arabic, whatever it is. The Quran basically. If you look at Muhammad, he slept with a 9-year-old child. It was disgusting. We can put that to the side. You look at Hinduism. Where do you go when you die? It's just a repetitive cycle of trying to get better. There is
right.
no end goal. It's just when you look at other religions, there's certain. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that religions are bad, because if you follow that religion, there has to be aspects of it that are somewhat good, But it's
How
like,
do we deal with? I mean, it's nice to say that we should all be nice and kind to each other, which is
of course it
essentially
is.
what you're saying.
Absolutely.
But
No, well, I'm saying,
we've got people that are I know within Islam, for example, they're very
mhm.
much into supporting each other as long as they're within the religion. So, but and they're very sincere about that level of kindness. So they
I
believe
mean,
that they're doing the right thing. So it's, to me, it seems like the
but
religious.
the thing is about that is that there is.
Let me just finish this sentence.
Go
The,
ahead. Sorry.
the thing to me is that the religious ones are always going to be competing with each other. So the best way to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish is to do it at a cultural level where everybody can be the same way, like you've got in Iceland and the Netherlands, for example.
Okay, well, when you have, countries like Iceland, when you have, okay, well, let me start from the top. Basically, you have certain religions. I'm 99% positive there is some verse in the Quran that says, if you leave the religion, you're they say chop your head. There are certain things in it
Yeah,
says
not
it's
those
in
words, but yeah,
Right. In Christianity,
it
it
could be
says Jesus
applied.
says
Yeah,
to respect all religions. I'm not sure there is a religion that has, respect all religions. It's kind of like you have to look at certain things and kind of dissect it. You're not bad for following this, you're not bad for following this, but Christianity is it's the religion where Christ is. It guarantees a way out. It guarantees you someone has saved you from your sins. There's no other religion that has
guarantees
that.
you a way out.
Yes, it guarantees you a way out of the wrongdoing that you've done.
It guarantees you forgiveness. It promises forgiveness.
Well, that's what I meant, not like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is also when you said the cultural aspect of it, I completely agree with you that that's
Yeah,
amazing. And then the part that I disagree is Iceland has a great leader. You come to America, you come to North Korea, that's never going to happen in a
right,
million years,
right.
So.
And that's when you need the strength of your cultural institutions to be strong enough to resist dictatorship.
Yes, but then again, when you I mean, it's hard to strengthen things when there's punishments for little, tiny little things that you do. I mean, North Korea, there's if you don't keep a painting clean of the leader, if there's speck of dust on it, your family gets time in jail. It's incredible. So when you
Yeah.
instill these values at a young age to children, it's very, very, very difficult when these people have world-destroying weapons to change their ideology. It's extreme. It's impossible. You can't. So that's where
Yeah,
Jesus comes in.
I think the only way that's going to change is like generationally when the
Yep.
leadership changes and more
Mm-hmm.
likely, and that's only about a 50-50 bet at best.
Ah, man, 1%
So,
then, man. You're going too generous here.
well, I mean, it's just like they're into a third generation already, and if this one goes, the next one is like his sister apparently. So they've already
Mm-hmm.
set up. Let me say hi to Pat, who just joined us too. Welcome in, Pat.
What's up, man?
Hey,
Um, so I just want to say, so wait, so what's your argument real quick?
Bro, we don't really have an argument. We're just talking.
Okay, that's fair. Look, all I want to say is, um, Eve was made out of Adam's rib because Eve was made to, or Adam was made from God, and Adam needed a partner in creation. Therefore, Eve was made
so
to be a partner to Adam, and Adam was made to protect Eve and be a partner to Eve,
so
and
why
vice
couldn't he
versa.
have just made? Why did he have to pull a piece of Adam to do it rather than just make Eve the same way he made Adam out of dust?
Because Eve was made out of Adam's side, so Eve was made for partnership from his side, so they're equal, and for protection.
For protection?
Yes, Adam is Adam protects Eve.
That
In
doesn't really follow logically from why the rib versus why
how?
not make her the same way he made him?
Well, I mean,
I mean, he could protect her just as easily if she was made out of dust from the same ground he was made out of. Do you want to know why
I
I think?
well, yeah, yeah. So what's so like what's your viewpoint? What's your
I
viewpoint?
personally I think it is a misogynistic writing to keep men dominant over women.
Okay,
And
so
they had to
what's
tell the story that way rather than in some other similar fashion, like I mentioned above, which would place them as a more of a co-equals.
okay?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um, I can see that viewpoint, but what's your view on God? Like, what do you believe about God? What's your view on him?
Well, I don't believe God exists. Or, I mean, I don't know he doesn't exist, but I don't believe that a God exists.
Okay, so I don't really think it's misogynistic. I think God created a human, and so God created a human, which became Adam. So this human was was deemed male because in ancient times, we can all agree that in like the ancient cultures, males were viewed as higher than women, right? Like, and I'm not saying that this is right at all.
Yeah, I
It's not
agree.
right at all.
I agree.
Right.
And that's why I think it's representative of the culture of the times and
Right.
not
So
something supernatural.
I think that I think that most modern Christians can agree that the story of creation, the story of Adam and Eve, is not a real story to be taken literally. I think it is a story
Yeah.
to be taken spiritually as
It
okay,
could
so this is like spiritually how God created the universe. But in most ancient cultures, men were viewed as higher than women.
Right.
So of course, God would create the male first and the women out of the male
could
as
I
a sign.
Yeah.
could I
Go ahead.
talk host?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is something I find interesting because with something like this where it's something that's, you can interpret in different ways. I could interpret this in my way. Adam came from the dirt. that's abiogenesis, that
For
is
sure.
just, genetics and the phospholipid bilayer and everything else that goes with a cell came from the dirt. And then further on, Eve, aka sexual dimorphism, split from Adam, which was the first cell, split from that, and that's what became the second, the
Sexual
sexual orientation.
dimorphism.
Yeah.
But you're talking about an egg splitting, right?
No. This is evolutionary biology.
Okay.
Like going back to like singular celled organisms.
Yeah,
right?
so you could
Right.
claim, if we were just saying this is up to interpretation, I could claim that the Bible says that evolution is absolutely true.
Okay, sexual
Right.
dimorphism, that's just refers to the physical differences between males and females. That doesn't
Well, it
that does
refers to the differences in the sexual, the gametes is what it refers to technically.
but that doesn't answer the question of why he couldn't have made her out of dust too.
Yeah, I'm not talking about.
Look, man,
I agree
it's
with
just
you.
a
I agree with you.
story.
I'm
It's
I'm
not a
talking about his
literal.
viewpoint, not yours. Like yours still makes sense with my viewpoint, but what I'm saying
When
is,
you read the Bible from a Christian standpoint, you have to look at it both literally and spiritually. You're not supposed to read the entire Bible literally or spiritually.
yeah, and that's my problem with it. Is like I literally was raised Christian. I was
Right.
raised Christian and Catholic. I literally go right now to a Christian university. I've taken Christian classes. I've taken
Okay, so
Christian
then
worldview.
you should know that you're not supposed to take it
And
completely
that's my
100%
problem.
literally.
That is my
How is that a
problem
problem?
with the
How is that
Christian
a
worldview.
problem, though?
guys,
How is that a problem?
don't overtalk each other, please.
Sorry. I'll let you
Sorry.
talk.
Well, okay, I don't want to speak over you. I'm sorry for speaking over you, but so my thing is when you say that's your problem about looking at it literally and spiritually, how is that a problem? Because like let's be real here. When we read the story of Noah and we see, okay, so God flooded the entire earth, like like we're not supposed to look at that literally. Of course the entire earth wasn't completely flooded. Every single human being wasn't completely flooded, because then every human being like in the modern era would be descended from Noah. Of course not. That's not supposed to be taken literal. So what problem do you have with taking the
But
Bible literally? That's
see,
my
that's my
question.
problem though, is like choosing it's the picking and choosing, the cherry picking of when it's literal and when it's supposed to be taken figuratively. That's just a telltale sign to me that it's not a valuable source.
Okay. So
Yeah, I would agree with
what
that.
okay, so give me an example, or like something from the Bible that you think should not be taken literally, that you think is a problem, that just like pertains to your argument.
Well, let's go for the very first Genesis, the very first book. It says that everybody descended from basically a single set of ancestors. That's not
Okay,
physically
so
possible with genetics as we know it. It's not
right,
possible.
right. I don't think that is supposed to be taken literally. I think
Exactly. And so
so.
you're
Okay,
cherry
so
picking, and that's my point.
what I've learned is from my perspective, so I'm Catholic, from the Catholic perspective, which I know a lot of Protestants might kind of disregard the
Yeah,
Catholic perspective, but
I'm
from the
confirmed
Catholic
Catholic.
perspective, what we've been told is that yes, there was technically an quote Adam and Eve unquote, but these were Neanderthals descendants, and so of course not every human being is genetically descended from Adam and Eve, but they were just used as an example of when humans gained consciousness, we first learned to sin, to turn away from
And
God.
was that defined? Was all of that you just said, was that written out in the Bible?
Well, of course not, because the
Yeah.
Bible
That's my
The
point.
Bible, okay, but the Bible isn't meant to be a history textbook. The
Yeah,
Bible is
see,
meant to be the written word of God. So the
but
so
but
God
that's my
isn't going.
I'm sorry, but that's
Go
my
ahead.
point is that like if you're just saying like, okay, if I interpret this the right way, then it agrees with my worldview, then I don't think it's a very good worldview. Because with my worldview, no matter how you interpret it, no matter how you look at it, it is the same thing because it's objective. It's based on observation, it's based on fact, it's based on something that can't change from no matter how you look at it. But yours, it can change from millions of different perspectives, millions of different people. That's why there's so many different, Christian sects, and there's all these different Christian worldviews. There's not just one. There's hundreds of them.
I
Because
agree with you on like all these sects and worldviews. Go ahead. My bad.
no, that was my point. It's just like your worldview isn't consistent just because there is no consistency. There's 100 different ways you could interpret it, unlike my worldview where there's only one way to interpret it.
Well,
Okay, so
let's
I
why
do have.
why can't we have a worldview that is just objective, evaluates objectively? That's why I don't like the
Yeah,
phrase
that's why I
looking
moved
from
away
a
from
Christian
Christianity.
perspective. That's basically begging the question on everything that's written in the book.
Well, I do have, I guess, a response to Trevor. So I will say one, I guess my first point is, well, like, one, Trevor, what's your worldview? But like, I guess, like, save it. So then two would be, I guess, like, you know when the Christian faith started is when Jesus died on the cross and then resurrected from the dead, right? So there wasn't supposed to be like all these thousands of sects and like stuff from this one worldview, but all these people who wanted to change the Christian faith into their own faith, that is what
Uh,
started. It's like when Martin Luther and then Henry VIII and all these people tried to make it their own faith. That's when it divided into all these different
so
sects and
so
stuff.
then how do you define what is the right one then?
Well, I guess it's gonna sound kind of bullshit to you guys, but to me, it's like there's only one right sect. There's only one right faith,
Uh-huh.
and that is, and I mean, I guess technically all Christians believe, Jesus is the true Son of God. He is the Lamb of God. So that is technically the right viewpoint.
Do you think
But
there's like an underlying rule basically that all of them follow?
right, yeah, yeah. So like, of course, all Christian sects will admit to the fact that Jesus is the Son of God. But they all have their own, like different rules and regulations differing from each other.
Yeah. So
Which
then
some are
but that's
important,
my
some
problem.
aren't important.
That's
Well,
where my problem stems from though, is like,
so let me
okay,
ask
that's
you.
great. We have consistency now, but now we have to prove that Jesus was the Son of God. And to prove that,
Well,
now you've got hundreds of different ways to prove that aren't consistent with each other, aren't
that's the
historically
thing.
consistent.
You can't really. I know it. Like to a non-believer, it sounds bullshit. You can't really prove it. Like that's where the faith, the
But
trust
I'm
comes in,
I'm
and
not
there
exactly
is.
like a non-believer, like I'm an atheist that's
Well,
never heard of this.
let
I
me
was
ask
raised
you.
Christian, I was raised Catholic. I go to a Christian university. I've studied this in school.
Okay.
So like I am very well educated on Christianity,
So
for
then let me
sure.
ask you, what is your viewpoint? What is your, I guess, like, what is your viewpoint? What is your perspective of the Christian faith? Like, what are you trying to, like, quote unquote argue?
So I think that the Christian faith was an amalgamation of previous faiths, just like every faith before it. We see this over and over again. You see
Like,
there's a
including like ancient Greek, ancient Roman?
yeah, well, parts of it, yes. So there's previous
Okay.
faiths, and they intertwine with others, and they come together into a medium, and that medium between those conflicting cultures comes to a new faith. And that happens over and over and over again throughout all of history. We see it over and over and over again. And So with Christianity, we can say, well, Noah, for example, there's an example, but in ancient Egypt where it matches literally word for word. Noah is in the ancient Egyptian,
He's in the
mythos.
ancient Mesopotamian, I mean, he's everywhere. Right.
No, I'm saying like he's way before this was ever written, way before he's historically supposed to exist.
Right, yeah.
Like 1,000 years before he
He's
was
in the
written
ancient
to have existed.
he's in the ancient Mesopotamian, like transcripts and stuff. Yeah, right. He's
No,
the
that's
ancient
not what
Egyptian.
you're saying. Like he's in it. That means he exists. No, I'm saying
He's
he
a
was in it
historical
1,000
figure.
years ago, or 1,000 years before he existed as a different person. And then they said he existed now, 1,000 years later, but he happens to have the same qualities as this other deity that we've talked about. That's what I'm saying
Okay.
is Christianity is a continuation of a ton of different cultures that have combined. And you can literally look this up. I really encourage you to look it up. They all combine into Christianity. Other than Jesus, everything else is completely explainable with previous mythology.
So I do agree with you, like pretty much in almost every ancient, mythology or religion, there is, some sort of flood myth or tale. And I do agree that there are a lot of similarities between ancient religions and Christianity. But let me posit with this is that because there are so many similarities, could it be that each one of them got the same story from one of the ancient traditions? Like,
No, because they existed before.
Yeah.
They
well,
existed before Christianity ever
well, how do
existed.
we know that? I mean, like Christianity didn't technically exist
Historical
until Jesus
texts.
died. Okay,
Historical
okay,
texts.
but Christianity technically didn't exist until Jesus died on the cross, right? But
Exactly. But
Abraham existed
this is
thousands of years before Jesus even
but
was
this
born.
goes
So
along with
God
that. This is
God has been okay, go on.
this
My
goes
bad.
along with that. With all of the mythology, with even before Christ, even with the Old Testament, these mythologies existed before the monotheistic Judaistic God existed. These
Okay,
were
so why couldn't the same God that is the Christian God have flooded the Mediterranean? And have,
he could
created
have,
all these
but the
ancient
thing
myths
is
from
they
the
don't
Greeks
match
and the
up.
Romans?
They don't match up. That's the problem, is that they say this happened at, say,
Well,
this isn't the actual time point, but let me just, as an example, these ancient cultures said this happened at negative 900, BC. This happened at 900 BC.
okay.
And then the Christian faith says this happened at 0 BC. And so
But
that's the
Christians,
problem. They don't line up. The previous incarnations of these myths happened long before Christianity ever even existed.
okay, I understand where you're coming from, but like let's be logical here. Of course, different faiths, different cultures are going to acknowledge time differently. For Christians, time is
So
going to be
they
before
lost
Christ
hundreds of
and
years.
after Christ. But for the Greeks who don't believe Christ is the Messiah, they're going to view time differently.
So they
So if
lost
the Greek,
hundreds of years, is what you're saying. They lost almost a
of
millennia,
course,
1,000 years, is what you're saying,
well,
without knowing.
of course, because
See,
the ancient
that's the
Greeks didn't
fallacy
believe
that
that
we can't
Christ
agree on.
was the Messiah.
That's the
How,
fallacy we can't agree on. Humans wouldn't miss 1,000 years of history.
wh- how, what do you mean miss 1,000 years of history?
That's what you're
Where did
saying.
they
It's
miss
like
1,000 years of history?
you're saying like, oh, they didn't have the times right, but like this was thousands of years before Christianity existed.
What was thousands of years before Christianity existed?
All of these myths I'm talking about, the Noah myth,
Yeah,
the
of course,
Jesus
the
myth.
Noah myth was thousands of years before even Abraham
No,
in Christianity.
not
So,
even
so
that. I'm
what do you
saying
mean? What was
before Eve's myth. It existed before that ever was recorded on human.
Eve? Adam and Eve wasn't really recorded in any other culture. I'm confused as what you're trying to say. What was lost to thousands of years?
The Christian history. It didn't exist
Because
until
the Christian history was only technically in the Middle East until it got spread by Paul
exactly.
and the
That's the
other
point.
apostles.
That's my
Okay,
point.
so how would you expect other culture? Okay, so for an example, if
When did it
if
happen? That's
if
my
something
point.
happened, if
When did they start spreading this?
after Jesus died, like when Paul
So
and the apostles started
they
spreading.
just
Okay, so let me give
neglected
you
to
an
spread
example.
it.
If something, incredible happened in America before any TV, radio, before any, form of news besides, traveling on foot and by letters happened. If any, major thing happened in America, it would have been spread to Russia and Europe and Asia, until, at least a
I'd like to
year, two
address that.
years, 3 years, 4 years
I,
later.
I would
That's
love to
exactly
address
what
that.
happened with the Christian faith.
I would love to address that.
Okay, go
Because
ahead.
let's talk about that. So let's use your example. Okay,
Right,
so it existed long before the radio existed, right?
right.
Let's say
Okay,
it
for sure.
was a Russian fairy tale, right? The
Right.
Russians had it for thousands of years. They had it for
Okay.
thousands of years. And then suddenly the English co-opted it and they started spreading it. And then the English say, this has always been ours. This is our tale. That's what you're claiming right now.
Who, who is who is in your analogy? Who is the English that has always been
The
saying
English is
this is ours?
Christianity, and the Russians are the previous cultures that these came from, that the tales that came thousands of years before these were written into the Christian mythos.
Wait. So wait. What? You're saying the English is Christianity, but Christianity originated from Judea,
Okay,
where Jesus died.
no. I'm not saying it's actually English, bro.
Hold on.
Okay,
Reenact.
okay. Let me lay it down a little bit more
Restate it.
simple.
Restate it.
This has
My bad.
nothing to do with Christianity. This is not history.
Right.
Right. So you
Okay.
have
Okay.
a
Okay.
Russian mythos, right?
Okay. A
You
Russian
have a Russian
mythos.
mythos that has existed for thousands of years, right?
Right.
This isn't history. This isn't real. Okay.
Okay. This is just like, a hypothetical. Right.
Yes. Okay. And then suddenly in the year zero, the English learn about it, right?
Right.
And so they take it and they start mass producing that story and it spreads all over. And then they claim it came from them,
Okay.
but they changed it.
Okay. So I have two. I have
That is what
two
happened.
two things to ask of you. So one. Um. Okay. So one. Why did the English say they changed it? What could they have changed? And two, where did they learn it from? They learned it from the Russians, right?
Yes, exactly.
So,
The
so
Russians
if
that had
the
an entirely
so
different belief system.
no
Exactly.
matter what the Russians believe, if the English learned it from the Russians and the English completely believed it,
But they didn't.
why
That's the
wouldn't
thing. They
they?
believed in entirely the Russians. Okay, let's say the Russians, they believe six gods caused this thing. The
Right.
English co-opted it and said one god caused this
Okay.
thing. That is what happened, basically.
But I just don't see where you're.
But
I just don't
I'm
see
not
the
saying like
analogy.
this isn't even a hypothetical.
Okay,
This is what happened.
well, let me ask you. So, what do you mean the English took it from the Russians and made their own, religion or tradition from it? What do you mean by that? How did the quote unquote English make it their own?
So all these different cultures combine, right?
Right.
So you have all
All
these
these like different, like sects and stuff is what you mean?
not even sects, different. It could
Like
even be
like
entirely.
Orthodox and stuff.
Sometimes it's sects, sometimes it's different religions entirely, and this is a slow
Not every
process.
religion believes in
You
Jesus.
need
See,
to
like this is where I'm getting
you need to let me
confused.
talk through it if you want to understand it.
All right. I'm sorry. Go
You have
go
you may
talk
have
through it. Talk
different
through it.
sects, you may have different religions, but as history goes on and this culture, these different peoples all come together and they form one society, there's going to be conflict unless they form a cohesive story. And so they do form a cohesive story. And this is repeated not even in just Christianity, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Islam, in every single religion that's ever existed. This has happened. They take parts from the previous cultures that have all come to this area and they combine it into one religion. And you can
Look,
even see this in modern Christianity.
look,
Do you know? Okay,
respectfully,
wait. This is really important. So when Christianity got brought to Mexico, they combined it with the Mexican beliefs, and this is a modern, quote unquote modern. It's the past 2 centuries, but this is a pretty modern example. They combined it with Mexican beliefs and basically Aztec beliefs. So Dia de los Muertos is a part Christian and part Aztec ritual combined.
right?
And so that's an example of how culture evolves when you combine two different cultures.
Well, okay. Well, look. So I have two things to say about that. So one, whenever you look, so I've been, studying. I'm taking a class on ancient histories, right? Look,
Yeah, I've
the
taken one
ancient
too.
Mesopotamians, they merged their own religion, their own gods with the ancient, Sumerians, ancient Akkadians.
Exactly.
They merged their own gods, created their own new, religious system. So
And
so
same
the
with
mergence and
the Greeks
ancient
with the
the
Romans.
the
Yeah,
mergence, yeah, exactly. The ancient Greeks and Romans, the the like merging of gods isn't a new thing to Christianity. It's been going on since the dawn of civilization, frankly.
that's my point.
Okay, so then and then two, like what you were saying about um like what were you saying about Christianity is like merging religions and stuff?
Yeah, so like we can trace a ton of the different um, Christian mythologies back to previous religions. I mean, honestly, most of
Like
them.
like
I would say
what? So like
about
give me
80%
examples.
of them.
Give me
Let's say,
examples besides like the ancient flood, like
well, yeah,
the
yeah,
obvious
okay. If you
stuff.
start saying like, "Oh, you can't talk about this one," then obviously it's not going to
Okay,
exist.
well, because obviously every ancient myth has a flood,
Yeah,
because, and I don't
exactly.
want to sound too religious, because
Because it
God
was
allowed a flood
probably
in the ancient Mediterranean where the dawn of
because it was
civilization was.
probably a real thing that happened in all these different religions.
Exactly, a real
No,
thing.
listen. It was probably a real thing that happened, but there's a physical explanation for it, right?
Okay, so give me at least two more examples of a physical thing happening in the world that aligns with the Christian myth, quote unquote, and ancient myths that can be contributed to a physical thing.
Okay, Noah splitting the Red Sea and all of
Bes-
that. That is
okay,
an Egyptian myth.
so what other myth has Moses splitting the Red Sea? What other myth?
You want me to? I can look it up right now. I'm not gonna say I know
Please.
this off the top
I
of my
mean,
head, but you
like,
want me to look it up
please.
right now?
Of course.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'll be right back.
Okay.
To answer your question, Ralph, no, I didn't see the request. But welcome.
You might want to see if there's any others sitting there
I'm
that.
arguing some dude right now.
Yeah.
Hey Pat, so I have a
One,
question for you.
wait, hold
So
on. One
are
sec.
you
I'm
suggesting,
arguing with some dude right now on
Pat,
TikTok
are you
about
suggesting
God.
that other religions are are just based on Christianity, and all of the religions have their origin from Christianity or the God of the Christian Bible.
Hold on, give me 1 second. 1 second. Okay, so I am arguing that God has existed since
Got it.
the creation of the earth.
That was
Like
fast.
Hold on 1 second, Trevor.
and like look,
Sorry.
every ancient culture, it's like of course no ancient culture believed in one God. They were all polytheistic, they were all, super, like whatever. I believe that
Hello?
God, was active in every ancient culture, and my, quote unquote proof of that
Yo, how does this
is
affect LeBron's
almost
legacy?
every single ancient culture has a a story of a flood, and that like God created the
hold
flood.
on.
Okay,
No,
but
no,
I can
no, no,
also
no.
add to that about the Christian belief.
Hold on. Every religion out there doesn't have a story of a great flood that covered the whole earth.
No, they do.
A lot of them have stories
How
of
does this
a
affect
Okay,
LeBron's
flood.
so
legacy?
every
There are
ancient culture around the around the quote unquote Fertile Crescent has a flood myth
long before Christianity.
because the
Yo, how does this
Euphrates and
affect LeBron's
Tigris
legacy?
were flooded.
so
Dog.
yes, because
How
floods
does
are
this affect LeBron's
common.
legacy?
Exactly.
So floods are
LeBron's
common.
legacy. What are you talking about, dog?
How does this affect LeBron's legacy?
Thank you for that.
They existed long before
Yeah,
Christianity.
but did it exist before LeBron
the
James?
story
I
of
don't
the
think
flood,
so.
it
So-
existed thousands of years
LeBron
before
James has existed
Christianity.
since the beginning of time. He's the greatest basketball player. We're not going to put that into the question? No, we're
Okay.
just bringing up something that happened like 5 billion years ago, man. You got to stay relevant to LeBron James. LeBron James, he's eternal.
Yeah, you know what? God
Yeah.
blesses LeBron James. The fuck?
So the problem with the
God allows LeBron James to win, bro. The fuck?
How does this affect LeBron's legacy?
God allows Braun's legacy
Bro,
to go
lower your
on.
tone. Lower your tone, boy.
What?
And keep your back straight. Keep your back straight and talk to me. Keep your back straight.
Michael, what the
Keep your
fuck
back
are you
straight.
talking about?
No, keep your back straight when talking to me, pal.
No, I didn't keep my back straight.
Okay, settle
What do
down.
you say to me, boy?
Settle
What do you
a
say to me,
little
boy?
bit. Pat, settle
What do
down.
you say to me,
What
boy?
is?
What do you say to me, boy? What do you say to me, boy?
Guys,
Yo,
I'm
keep your back
telling
straight.
you.
You know what you're talking to? You're talking to Michael Bateman, bro.
Yeah,
You were
some
talking to
fucking
the
bitch.
Michael Bateman.
I'm talking to some bitch.
No, you don't know
Okay.
who the
God is
Michael
keeping
Bateman is.
LeBron's legacy
Michael Bateman.
up.
seriously,
stop.
just
There's
calm
no.
down.
Let's have a discussion.
Sorry.
not
Settle.
All right, let's go back
Okay.
to the original discussion.
So Pat.
I have your answer.
Oh, hold on a second,
Trevor, no, Trevor, go ahead, because me and Trevor were in the original debate. All right, Trevor, go for it.
You went to look something up.
The original place the Moses myth came from was Ra-Harakti. I want you to look that up.
What culture was that from?
Egyptian, long before Christ.
So let me ask you, wasn't Noah, born and alive long before Christ? Wasn't he in the
No, this was
Mediterranean
before-
/ Egyptian
this was
region long before Christ?
Noah was born. This was literally hundreds to thousands of years
Okay,
before. I don't know the
so
exact.
let me tell you. So look, in the ancient. Okay, so let me ask you. In the ancient world, they didn't know about the rest of the world. They didn't know about America, South America, North America, Canada, any of that. So they thought the entire world was literally South Europe and North Africa, right? So
For
when
sure.
when they say, the world was flooded, they mean South Europe and North Africa. So wasn't Noah around before Christ?
No. Wait,
Yes.
what?
Wait,
What does that?
What do you?
Wait, what does that have to do with anything?
Okay. So
You are
so are you?
saying the flood myth was around thousands of years before Christ, and I am saying,
Yeah, it was.
yeah. Okay, so isn't it possible that in ancient Egypt, at the same time, Noah could have been alive in South
But why
Europe?
wouldn't they have recorded that? If this was God, guiding people to
They
record
recorded
his
it.
story.
You literally just
Your worldview says that God is guiding people to record his story, and you're saying they're missing out
okay.
on 500 to 700 to even 1,000 years? Is that what you're saying?
Wait. What do you mean they're missing out on 500 years?
Because that's how long it is. That's how
So,
far
how
back
long what is?
these
How long what
myths are.
so,
is?
so hold
That's
on,
how
what
far
Trevor.
back these myths are.
Trevor, hold
Wait,
on a second.
what are you talking about?
Pat,
Dude,
Okay, hold on. Let's go back.
after
Let's get into
okay. Let me listen to
back and forth
all right.
here, please.
Pat. So a big issue is that yes, there are flood myths in a lot of ancient cultures. They exist, they're out there. However, most of these cultures, or all of these cultures, did not expand past certain regional boundaries. And the flood myth occurs there. And it is perfectly reasonable. It is absolutely reasonable that a local flood happened and people would write about that. And for them, it would be a great global flood for them because it occurred over all the region they knew. But the big dichotomy is that these flood myths and stories in various religions and cultures throughout history have occurred at different times. If you trace these back, if this was a true worldwide flood like the Bible supposes, where everyone died out, number one, no one else would be able to write stories about it because no one existed but Noah's family. Right? Everyone else passed on. Number two, these stories would occur near the same time period, even if there were some miracle survivors because they held onto a plank and their God saved them, whatever it was, right? The time period of these stories would be very similar, would trace back to similar time periods, but that's not the case. They're all very vastly different time periods.
Well, okay, so one, let me ask you, like, when were the time periods? How do you know these time periods were vastly different, as you say? And then
How do you know?
two,
Actually, answer
like
that.
literally, as I said, as I said, to someone in ancient Egypt, to someone like Noah in South Europe, the entire world would have been South Europe and North Africa because nobody would have been
But
in
your
Northern Europe or
worldview
Southern
relies.
Africa. So
Hey, Pat, I can answer your
of
question.
course, the
Your
Bible.
wait. I
So of
Pat,
just
course,
want
we
to say
can't
one
take the
thing, and
Bible
then you
literally
can.
when it says the entire world was flooded. We cannot take that literally. We
Pat, I
cannot
got
only
you.
take that
Pat,
in the cultural
Okay,
can I answer your
in
question?
the cultural
hold
context.
on, Pat. Internet sloth.
We have to look in the cultural context. All right,
Internet
go
sloth.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Go
You were
ahead.
gonna say.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Pat. So I want to answer your question.
Okay.
What you asked first, your very first question is, how do we know that these happened over time? And it's really straightforward.
It's in
So we have
almost every
so
ancient context.
so hang
Yeah,
on.
history.
We know that these various floods happened over a large period of time in very different very different periods of time, because all of the cultures, virtually all of the cultures where flood myths appear, are in flood plains,
Right.
massive flooding valleys. So if we look
Right.
at Egypt, for example, why do so many people live there? Pull up Google Earth, look at it from a satellite. You'll see it's green. It's
Yeah,
because it floods. The
This is
river
fertile.
floods the surrounding area. It's called the Fertile Crescent. All
Okay.
of the cultures where we see flood myths are in floodplains.
Okay. So
And
that's
we
one. Okay.
see the history of floods laying down layers of sediment over time. So we can literally trace the history of flood myths. And in many cases, we can even see the floods that they came from. It's really, really cool.
exactly.
So what I'm saying is that in all of these ancient, like ancient Mesopotamian, ancient Sumerian, ancient cultures where there are flood myths, I'm saying is that these flood myths are the same as the flood myth that is in the Bible that says
But they
it
happen
flooded
at
the
different
world.
times.
Wait,
No,
where do you see it happens at different? Because the Bible doesn't give me a direct time. The
history,
ancient
historical
Mesopotamian
texts.
text,
Pat,
the ancient Mesopotamian text do not give a specific time as when the flood
Pat,
occurred, as like when it started versus when it
Pat,
ended.
But it's not
How do you
just
know they
that
started
one.
at different times?
There's
Pat.
hundreds of
It
different sources.
it
It's
doesn't
called
even matter.
archaeology.
It doesn't even matter the different times, Pat, because the central part of the biblical flood myth is that only one family survived. So they would not be
Okay,
able
but
to
that's not literal. They
reproduce.
cannot.
Not
They
true because
they
Okay, go ahead.
they would not be able to reproduce and
none.
spread out.
But
And
he
even
wait,
I'm not even
he says
talking
that
about.
this isn't. I just want to cut this off because he says this isn't true because it's a metaphor. So it wasn't
So
just one
Exactly.
thing.
This story is not
okay,
supposed to be
Pat.
taken literal.
Right. If
The
it's
whole
not literally true, then that story in the Bible is not literally true. Why should I believe that a
Exactly.
man resurrecting from the dead is literally true, or any other
Exactly.
story in the Bible is literally true? It's either everything in there that is presented as history and not, started off with tells a parable, which there are several parts in the New Testament that starts off with this is a parable of this or whatever, and it's very clear that this is a made up story to illustrate a point, but all the other parts are laid out as actual history. If I can't
Exactly.
trust the parts that are supposed to be taken literally because they're labeled as literal history, why should I trust any single word that's in there?
look, man.
That's my point.
Okay,
Exactly.
I know. Look, like I'm gonna ask you guys: do you guys believe in God? Because I know if you do not believe in God,
Obviously not.
it's gonna be taken
Nope.
as bullshit. Because the Bible isn't supposed to be taken as 100% literally or 100% figuratively. You're supposed like the point of the Bible is
If
to
you look at
trust, to
it the
have
right way and
complete
you really
100%
believe.
faith. You're not supposed to have proof
Exactly.
because if you
That's our
have okay
problem.
okay so
100%
then your
faith.
problem is you
There,
don't
my dear
believe in
boy,
God.
is the main
So then you don't believe in
problem.
God, do you?
So,
But that's
If
our
you
problem is you want us to just believe and just believe
yes, you
on
have to have
blind faith,
complete
on just
faith.
blind shit, just not
Ruth,
knowing,
Ruth
not
denies
looking,
Exactly.
faith if
That
you've
is the
not
got
point of
seeing.
Munchausen jail
Christianity,
card.
dog. The point of look,
That's your
I don't
problem.
mean
You
to
want
get
us to just
super
believe
upset about
just
this, but
because.
Pat,
look, I completely understand that to a non-believer, 100% blind faith seems like complete bullshit and
okay,
Yep.
like falsehood.
Pat,
Just like it's
Pat,
like look, I am
Pat,
saying
can you stop
Pat,
using that word, please? The swear word.
Pat.
okay, look,
So I was a
I'm
believer.
sorry.
I was a
All I'm
believer,
saying,
had blind faith
look, you
for
guys have talked.
40.
Look, let me just
Pat, I
say,
need you to take a pause. You've been
Just
going
you guys
on
have been talking
nonstop.
the entire time. I've not been able to say my piece the entire time. All I'm saying is that you guys have been saying about, like if we're supposed to accept that this, myth is the same myth in all of the cultures, blah blah blah, that like we're supposed to accept this one God as one God. Look, I know that it doesn't make sense to a bunch of non-believers, but the point of the Christian faith is to
It's believing
except
without
with
seeing.
the little amount of proof with 100% blind faith that
Exactly.
Jesus is the son of God, and I
Now,
understand why
that
you don't
How
okay.
believe
does it
that,
make
our
sense to
but
problem.
that's the
Pat? How
point.
does
That
it
is
make
the point
sense?
of the
That
faith,
is our
because that is what
problem.
faith
The
means.
blind faith.
Faith
We don't
means
want to
look
do blind
faith
faith.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat, let someone else
If
speak.
your argument is blind faith, we are never, ever, 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 ever going to go with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay
And Pat, the central issue is it's not, atheists aren't asking for absolute 100% proof that Jesus exists or a God exists or anything like that. We're just
Just
asking for
something.
some evidence that it might potentially be true, that it raises the bar of it being more likely to be true than less likely to be true. And right now,
Exactly.
it is way down in the less likely to be true. And
If God,
another thing that you keep bringing up is like how involved the God of Christianity was involved in the lives of humans back for 2,000 years or whatever it was before, or 4,000 years before the birth of Christ, and during Christ's time period and stuff. and then he just disappeared.
Yeah.
How did he
That's what I'm
disappear?
saying
So
is
how does that
if
how
God
does
wants
that
me
even
to
make
believe
sense?
that he exists, and if I don't believe he exists, then I get tortured.
No,
I
not at
don't.
all.
No.
See, this
Just
is the
listen.
problem with atheists.
No.
With
Just
atheists.
listen. Just at least listen to what I'm saying.
All right, I'll listen.
If the choice is believe in this thing that you can't see, you can't measure, you can't in any way prove is true, believe in
Not
it.
even
Otherwise,
proof. Give
you
evidence
are
of.
relegated to HE double hockey sticks. Then that's where you're going. I don't want to worship that God. I do not, even if he does exist, I do not want to worship that God. Period.
Okay,
Can
let
I
me
can I
just
can I
say.
can I get Bob in? Have Bob make a comment. He's been in here a bit and hadn't had a chance to put a word in. So
The problem isn't with us. The problem is with the people who believe in a sky fairy and then come along knowing and say, "Oh, well, you can't prove that God doesn't exist," and try and inflict your nonsense on us. You can believe what you like, but you seem to go around thinking that we should believe what you believe, and if we don't, we're going
Well,
to be tormented for eternity. The problem isn't with
okay.
atheism. The problem is with Christians.
So, Bob, let me ask you, and only Bob. One, why don't you believe in God? And two, why do you believe that you will be tortured for eternity if you do not, believe and accept the Christian God?
I don't
Just
believe that there is a God. I don't think there is
why
a
not?
vanishingly small evidence for the existence of a God. And why do I believe it? Well, because your Bible and all of your preachers tell me that I will be.
So why do you believe something that one you do not accept in your heart is true, but you believe, oh, so if I don't believe in this God, then I'm going to hell. Why do you believe
No,
you're going to
no,
hell if you
no,
don't
no,
believe
no,
in
no, no,
God?
no, no, no. Listen to what I just said, right? I don't
Because
believe that there is a
we're
God.
using your logic. That's what's happening. We're not believing in it. We're using your logic.
No, we are told repeatedly, both now and throughout the recorded existence of your religion, that if we don't believe in this entity, in this fantasy, who, by the way, by the evidence of your own book, is a deeply disturbed multiple personality with big issues, that if we don't believe in that thing, we will be punished for eternity. I don't believe that that is the case, right? I don't believe that that exists, right? But I do believe that you people believe and inflict this on us with a threat, the threat of eternal damnation. I
No,
believe that you believe that, and I believe that you go around the world telling us that we believe that. I believe that the same is true of people who believe in Allah or in all of these other sky fairies. Okay.
so, well, let me. So you're an atheist, correct?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
so look, I know that there are some Christians that go around, forcing
Some.
their faith. Okay, a lot of Christians go around forcing their faith. Like, look, like I've even been forced the faith. Like Christians force their faith on others. That is completely wrong. But like, let me ask you, why do you think like the Christian God is like what you said is super like emotional or like whatever, and why don't you believe that he exists? Like,
We
can you give me a
Why don't
valid
well, I'm
don't
telling you
argument?
this.
believe he exists. We're
I
using
don't
your logic.
believe.
I'm asking
I don't
Bob.
believe. I do not believe, right, that there is evidence. I cannot see any evidence for the existence of whatever iteration of God you happen to wish to perpetrate on the rest of us.
Have you
Okay,
okay,
because it
so
doesn't exist. There is no evidence for it.
Okay,
let
Pat.
me
Pat. So to give you some history on myself, I was a believer for 49 years. Right?
wait.
Absolutely believed in Christ and everything. I was raised Christian family. I have, missionaries and preachers as family members and stuff. So I was absolutely firm in my belief and everything. And I went through a change and stuff, and looking at it now, it's like, how did I believe that stuff? Because there is no evidence for it. And I would love for someone to provide any, not proof, but just some valid, reasonable evidence to believe something, but it's just
Isn't
not there.
evidence the definition
So
of
just
proof?
to say, because you're not a believer.
No, it's not. And that's the other problem I have with you
Wait,
people. Is you
how
willfully
is evidence different
misunderstand
from
and
proof?
represent
How is evidence different from
the scientific method. Because you
How
know
is-
the difference between proof and hypotheses and theory. And yet you
Evidence is not
continually
equal to hypotheses.
misuse that
Evidence
method.
is proof.
Explain the difference.
So a simple
Evidence leads
simple,
toward proof, but it's not. You need a lot of evidence to be high enough to call it proof.
So then, okay, so then if it's
so
not
a simple
evidence, it's
simple
not
look
evidence.
at
And that's
evidence.
If it
why
doesn't
I
lead to
think
proof, then it's not
religion
evidence.
is a negative point.
You want me to explain the difference
The evidence
between
of history is
evidence and proof?
overwhelming.
So evidence is something as simple as an apple falling on your head while you're sitting under an apple tree.
Right.
Hey, there's something that causes stuff to fall down,
Yes.
right? That's evidence of gravity, right? using a made up thing, whatever. But right, that's the point. That's evidence of gravity. That's not proof of gravity. You have to do a lot more experimentation and tests and a whole bunch more stuff to prove something, and you have to do a lot more hypothesis. But the base level is just, hey, this event happened, and that's evidence.
So
And there's not any of that
So
for
essentially,
Have you
Christian
heard
God.
of? Okay, so let me ask you. Like, there are many, modern miracles, and I know you guys aren't gonna, believe, but like, look up the miracle of the Eucharist that started bleeding. Like, there is a priest
okay.
that was doubting
there
his
is an
faith,
explanation.
and he was doing the sacrifice of the
There
Eucharist,
is
and
an
the Eucharist started
explanation.
bleeding. Look it up; it is real.
There
There
is
are
an
real
explanation.
Oh,
evidence.
it's on the
There's
internet.
a
It must be true.
scientific, physical explanation for
No,
that.
because the blood was
It's
the
not
blood
blood.
was
They
type O.
tested it. It
Oh,
wasn't
It
blood.
was the
please.
universal donor.
It was iron.
I've got a calendar
No,
here. Says somewhere
exactly.
that
Iron is in
21st
blood.
century. Give us a
Yeah,
break.
exactly. They
Hey,
tested it,
Pat,
and it was iron.
Pat,
And
just
if-
one second. Really
What's
and
up?
truly, Pat. One
What's
thing
up?
that you may notice here is when they're trying, because I haven't been trying to get involved very much, but when you say something and you're making a claim, notice that they're trying to respond and explain it. And instead of trying to immediately rebut what they're saying, listen to their criticism first, because you may get a sense for what the issue is. Just running over them
Okay,
isn't
that's
going
fair.
to help.
Listen to respond.
That's fair.
Listen to understand.
I have
and
listened to
then
Bob.
respond.
I was into,
Listen
all right.
to
So let me listen to
understand.
all of y'all's arguments. Let me listen.
Okay, so here's their
I
issue with what you
understand.
just said.
Okay, what's up?
That's the thing is I can't speak for everybody else, but I do understand Christianity. I understand where you are coming from. But you don't understand where we're coming from. When we say things,
Well, then let me
you
understand.
immediately rebut with things that don't work within our worldview.
What, Trevor? I was arguing with you with things that was like equal to what you were arguing with.
Here.
So then let me hear your argument.
Yeah, no. When we were just talking, it was great. But once everybody else came in, it has kind of.
Okay, so then
evolved
Ralph,
a little bit into more
internship,
metaphysical.
Bob, Jacob, let me hear y'all's arguments. What do y'all have to argue?
Well, I was wondering, what if a prophecy from the Bible came true?
Well, what's your argument? If a prophecy in the Bible came true, then like what are you arguing?
Well, I guess I'm just not arguing. I would just be more, would that change your guys' mind and religion view and not be atheists and believe that there is
It would take more than just that, but yeah, that would count as evidence for something.
If you could show any prophecy in the Bible, actual prophecy in the Bible came true, whether that's about Jesus or anyone else, that would be a point towards evidence.
Nope.
Well, Hold
most
on
of
to your
the things in the
panties,
Bible,
boys.
But Jesus didn't even.
Let's hold on to our pants, everybody. Go ahead.
No, I mean it's just like
ahead,
it's I mean I don't want to get like too in depth with it, but like it's already written. And I know like the Four Horsemen is supposed to be like World War III, and like shit's getting intense already. And I would have to say 2027 might be like the date that like
It's always
That the
end times.
apocalypse
Someone
is coming.
always thinks it's end times.
I think like
You
throughout
do
history,
know.
throughout antiquity, everybody has thought that the end of the world, the quote unquote apocalypse, has been coming in the next 1 or 2 years. So I understand where you're coming from, Jacob, but I think that is also just a part of history that there are quote unquote signs
Yeah.
of the apocalypse. They're
yeah.
not really
I mean,
trustworthy.
the biggest reason to not believe Revelation is the book of Revelation is not actual prophecy, is because it was a typical sort of post apocalyptic literature that was written during that time period. So there's other examples of similar apocalyptic literature. And the other thing being that the mark of the beast that's written in there is, when you look at ancient texts, like original, like the oldest versions we can find, you have some of them with the mark of the beast is 666 and some of them is 616. And that depends on whether you're looking at a Hebrew or Greek version of that scripture. And that is because Nero, his numerology thing, I forget the right word for it. His numerology for Nero was 616 or 666, depending on which language you're coming from. So the book of Revelation was apocalyptic literature written about Nero, which was something at that time, and it was just trying to expound upon that and other stuff. Just like we write stories like Mad Max and stuff about nuclear war and all this other stuff. It's just people using what's currently going on and the current rulers and stuff to make a horror story, so to speak.
Okay. In the Four Horsemen, who was prophesized to come, in your opinion?
In Revelation,
We actually know this one,
In
Jacob.
Revelation.
What was it? The four horsemen are war, pestilence, famine, and disease, or something? Or no?
It's something like that. I mean, it like I'm just trying to get an understanding is like what other people's knowledge of it is out the world compared to like what I'm just like looking on the internet and what I'm finding, because I don't know if what I'm finding on the internet is going to be accurate with what you guys are finding.
Hey,
I mean,
Jacob, this is actually really not something that you need to worry about, because even if I was still a Christian, I would have told you the same thing here. The predictions of the end of the world, for lack of a better term here, is just that it really is part of the stories of the time, and that it's not just something that was claimed recently. It pops up on the internet because people have the ability to spread information faster now. But all we have to do is look back at the history. Not only constantly are people claiming that there's going to be conflict in, oh, what's that? The most conflict driven place on Earth in the history of the planet, where humans have always been. Well, basically always been. But even worse than that, you can just look at the fact that if the Gospels are to be believed, Jesus' own apostles thought that the world was going to end while they were still alive, and it didn't. So it's just something that's claimed constantly. You don't need to worry about it.
I mean, you can look at the writings of Paul, and if you really look at it and stuff, you can see in there, and this is really not just Paul, but all the apostles in the entire time period of the New Testament. But you can see in there that they're not concerned about long-term things. They're not concerned about the political environment or changing, slavery or anything else that's like a long-term change. they're concerned about the here and now because the time is nigh. Like they all thought it would be in their lifetime because that's what they were told, that within a generation would be the second coming, and that didn't happen. So that's a failed prophecy.
So if let's just say, because from what I know, there's two different prophecies of the four horsemen. It's Jesus coming back or the Antichrist coming back, and then like, what would the Antichrist believe in if he were to come back? What would be the opposite of Christ?
Well, I think he's in the White House right
Everyone's going to
now.
claim that. Yeah, everyone claims different properties. It literally just depends on the time. If you want to go by like the English during the medieval times, I mean, you're just going to see different claims from the ones that there are today. It just depends on the theology of the moment.
Step in, Bob. Bob, you had something?
As several other people have mentioned, the thing about apocalypse literature is it's always existed. And for you to go and say, well, how would this prophecy be fulfilled? You're asking the wrong question, because these things are always written in such a way as to be so vague as they can be interpreted in any way that the power wishes you to be interpreted. Whether in the Middle Ages it's the Mongols, or who also came from the East, or in the Renaissance in the 17th and 18th century it was the Roman Catholic Church, or now whether it was in the 1980s it was the Soviet Union, in the 1990s, 2000s it was the Muslims.
Nostradamus.
You can interpret it any way you want. And it's not true, because essentially when it was being written, it would appear it was being written about things that had already happened. So it's not actually a prediction. It's actually described. If you look at it, it refers to Rome, it refers to Babylon, it refers to all of these things, and all of those things were not only were not only being, inverted commas, predicted, they had already happened. And it's not prediction. It's in the guise of prediction, but those events were already and had already happened. It's the same as if you look at the prophecies in the Christian version of the Old Testament, to which Jesus is said to have fulfilled those prophecies. They weren't. Those prophecies were clearly rewritten or reinterpreted, and the story of Jesus specifically written to show that those prophecies had been fulfilled. If you take the example that supposedly in the New Testament there is a lot to be said about Jesus being born of a virgin, and that's clear. And then you look back at the Old Testament, and it's obvious that the people writing that prophecy post the life of supposed Jesus, post that life, they'd clearly been using the wrong text, because they've been using the Greek text of the Septuagint, which says, "And the Christ will be born of a virgin." But they're actually
say that.
Where was the Greek
what it
text
does is that
translated from?
The Septuagint, which is a Greek translation of the Aramaic or Hebrew text, actually says a young woman. So those texts are clearly being
young
written
woman
to show
who was
the
a
prophecy
virgin.
is fulfilled in a prophecy which they've obviously misinterpreted and miswritten, willfully misread. So if you're asking, our prophecies, how do you prove a prophecy takes place? It's, well, as the Christian Bible does, you rewrite the prophecies to show that what was predicted has been fulfilled.
Well, that'd be nice.
The other big problem with that one is not only that, but it wasn't even that Isaiah. I think it's Isaiah 53. It's not even talking about.
No,
it's
I
not
know
even
that
messianic prophecy.
Exactly.
It's talking about someone. I forget what it is, the other kingdom in Israel.
Yeah, I know the argument about that as well.
Yeah. So it's like it's failed on multiple parts. But
absolutely.
But the writers of the New Testament just read it in Greek and just pulled out stuff that they considered prophecies, and so they could point out, they could write this New Testament, the Gospels and whatever, and say, look, we fulfilled this, and all this has come to fruition to get people to align with their cult.
Yes, exactly.
So let me ask you, so what did you say was, pulling out of BS to align with their quote unquote cult?
All of it.
How is
Yeah.
it a cult? And how is it all
How
of
is it a
it?
cult?
If all of it was Noah's, okay, so let me just,
What's the difference
if
between
if all of it was pulled from BS to be a cult, when you guys literally said the flood myth was from almost every other ancient culture, that's not BS.
Actually, within the New Testament, within the Christian Bible, we can actually see where the story of the flood historically was pulled from, because a
From
lot of what's in the Bible isn't even original.
what?
It's not a new description of
Nothing
what was
from every
happening.
other ancient culture is original. You have to study
Sorry?
study other ancient cultures.
No,
Nothing is
we actually
original.
know
Nothing
specifically,
is
including in
original.
the details, where your myth of the flood came from.
The myth of the flood aligns with other myths, quote unquote, of the flood.
oh,
Yes,
let's not
because
go
it's
back there
plagiarized
again.
from them. Because it's taken from them. We can see textually where
How do we know
exactly that
that
myth
the
comes from.
other ancient myths wasn't taken from the Christian myth? Like,
Well, because
why do
We
they
you
do
did
guys say that the
actually
specify about
Christian
have
myths
one.
are
8,000
taken from
years.
every other myth? Why don't we see like it's so biased against Jesus, against God?
Sure,
What
Pat.
is?
So if we look at the
We're talking
Bible,
about evidence here, my friend. Evidence. Our evidence doesn't care about the feelings of a mythical sky fairy or
We
his
can see
alleged son.
evidence. We have
What evidence for
evidence.
what?
Go to the Met. We have evidence
Evidence for
of a
what?
flood.
We have evidence for floods, yes.
Yes.
But we don't have evidence for a flood that ends up with one family sitting in a massive gopherwood boat on the top of Mount Ararat.
We've
Even
gone
the
over
way
this
Again,
it's
before,
posted
Bob.
is based on a
Is
mythical
his
misunderstanding.
his argument to that is that it was not literally a global flood, that
because you have to look at
part
the
of the Bible you
context.
can take
You have to
not
look at the
Well,
literally.
context of
that's
the
my other
culture.
problem with
The
you might
context
not
of the
think
culture.
that the
Context of the
Bible is
culture.
literally true,
The
but there are
culture
millions of your
was
followers who
Southern
do.
Europe and Northern Africa, right? You have to look at the context of the culture, as with every other myth. When you
Okay.
look at the
Pat,
context of the culture,
hold on. The context of the culture doesn't matter here because the story is that
yes, it
the
does.
story is that all humans were wiped out except a family. It would
Yeah,
take a
of the
global.
yeah. So the context of the
It
culture,
would take a global flood to do that, and that's not possible.
Okay.
yeah, and
So if you're
so
if you're
to
taking
oh my
if you're not taking the global flood in the Bible literally, if that is not your point of view, there is no point in discussing it because it's just made up regardless, right? Because if it's fake in one way, it's fake in another way. You can't trust any part of it. So there's no point in even discussing the global flood or anything with the global flood or any other cultures with the flood myth or anything because you don't take it literally. So just disregard anything
can
flood related. That's
can you
not
listen to me?
evidence of anything.
Okay, look,
I
can you
am
listen to
listening to
me?
you, and you're talking
So
nonsense.
when
You
you
might
go
not
to
believe that it's literally
so
true, but
Bob,
there are millions of
Ralph,
your
when you
co-religionists
go
who
to
do, and
museums
you're
and you
encouraged to
study
inflict
ancient
nonsense on us.
cultures,
Don't overtalk. Don't over, please.
when you study ancient cultures, right? You look at the cultural context, right? When you study
Mhm.
ancient Mesopotamia, you study the cultural context, the cultural
Mhm.
fluency of their culture, right? The same thing with Noah and the flood. When Noah writes, there was a flood that flooded the entire world, we must look at the cultural context of said flood.
But
If
Pat,
he
All right.
says the flood flooded the entire world, that means to hit his entire world was South Europe and North Africa. So
No,
okay,
it
to
again,
wasn't.
be to,
it
to
can't be
be
taken
clear,
but
Pat,
Pat,
It
literally.
can
Pat,
I
was.
can
No
I
there's a
ancient
ask
little
myth can be taken
misunderstanding.
literally.
can I ask a question to
No,
Pat?
look, I know you guys
Let
are
me
biased
correct
against anything.
something.
No ancient myth can
Pat,
be taken literally.
Pat, hang on. There's a little misunderstanding that you seem to have here. Um, Even within Christian like scholarship, no one claims that South Europe was also flooded. It's very
Dog,
clear that
what?
it's just yeah. So the flood myth of the Bible is, I mean, virtually universally understood and studied by scholars. And it's just that there is a flood myth from a flood valley. There's lots of those. However, what's
Right.
specific here is that this is not a flood myth from South Europe and all of these other places. What I
How do
think
you know?
may have,
Have you studied the ancient cultures?
yes, actually, but what's
From
cool here?
Mesopotamia.
More than you have, my friend.
Yeah,
More than
What?
you have.
Dude, I'm taking an ancient history class. The fuck?
yeah, Pat.
Oh,
So
Pat,
in your
You're
Pat,
ancient
let him,
history
ancient
Pat,
class,
let him
clothes.
finish. Let him finish,
it's on the
please.
internet.
Let Internet
Yeah.
Sloth finish.
what you're
Fair
going to
enough.
see here when you look at these cultures is that there is no flood that's being claimed at like a very specific time space. There are floods that are like intermittent that pop up myths of their own. Some of them we can date, some of them are just kind of like hand wagging because they may have just been like oral tradition. But there's nothing here that would indicate they're this single source. They're clearly from all different times. That's what we were trying to tell you earlier, is there's no reason to even think that all of these flood myths from around the region all come from a single event, especially when you're in a history class, and I encourage you to go look this up. We know that several of the flood myths are from different floods. We know
Of course, the
this.
Nile River Valley flooded quite often, especially during the spring. We know that, but I'm saying like around the Jordan River and around, Israel and ancient Israel. Like I'm saying around that area,
You have
Northern
no idea.
Africa and Southern Europe. Like, of course, the Nile River Valley
Wait,
flooded often.
No,
The
sorry,
why
but
are
the
we
ancient
right,
Egyptians don't have
expanding
a
the
only
the
that
claims
ancient
is
now?
Egyptians do not have a
Southern
Wait, so
Europe.
biblical
can
flood
we just
story.
put this flood thing to bed by saying that global
Yeah.
flood did not happen?
Well, how do you know that though?
Because
Because
it's
it
not
did.
Because
physically
obviously there were
possible. It's
many
not
It's not
physically
floods.
possible.
What do you mean by global flood? Because again, it depends
The
on
one in the
cultural
Bible,
context.
the one you're
It's
The
saying is
cultural
Bible
different.
talks about
context.
covering the mountains and everything, so we know that that's
Okay,
not
so
physically.
cultural context.
So that's not physically possible. So can we put? So why are we arguing about a flood that can't actually happen?
All right.
Because apparently
Fine.
we're ignoring the cultural context, which you seem to be only have a vestigial knowledge of.
Yeah.
Can we
All right,
just
fine.
put
We can
the
move to another
flood stuff
argument.
to? Can we just put the
can,
flood
but
stuff
it's
to
just
bed?
not
I mean,
Fine,
you don't
Let's
fine.
move
believe.
on to a
No,
different
no
topic.
more
You guys
flood.
are
No
just
more
going
flood.
over. Yeah, let's just go for something else.
No more flood.
Enough about.
I mean,
the
you
flood.
don't believe the Bible is true about the flood. You don't believe in the literal flood. You don't believe in the Bible. So let's just move on. It's irrelevant.
I'm
How
puzzled
do I not
about.
believe in the
I'm
Bible?
puzzled
How do I
about
not believe in the
the.
Bible?
We go in a different direction. I'm puzzled about
What?
Pat. You saying that we need blind faith. When is blind faith useful at any time in life?
Okay. So, look, man, blind faith is a very real thing, but there is evidence of God
No,
like
there
throughout
isn't.
history. So let me
Then
let
it's
me
not. Then it's
for you
not.
guys.
Then it's not blind,
wh-
right? If there's evidence, then
Oh,
it's not blind.
okay,
So we can put blind to bed at least. Then
I agree that
I would say
faith
you're supposed
okay,
to
is
have blind
yeah,
faith.
fine. Then no blind faith. Then faith in general. Faith in general is important. But let me like
it's
in
important in enabling
France,
people
they're
to be deluded.
deluded.
It's
How
important.
deluded? How?
It's important in enabling hierarchies to convince poor and willfully ignorant people that that the fantasy is true because they've got to obey the rules, otherwise they're going to be punished. That's important. It's important when a method comes along to prove that what you are talking is literally nonsense. And oh well, don't, because our God can exist outside time and space. You can't prove it. Therefore, it's important. Yes, it's very
Well, that's
important,
the
and it's
point.
actively dangerous, actively harmful.
Like, okay,
Pat,
look, I
It's
understand
important
your
for us.
argument that it's actively dangerous or harmful, but like
Yes.
again, that is a invalid argument because that is the
Oh,
point
is it
of the
now?
faith. That is the point of the faith. Like I can understand why you won't believe it when me saying that is the point of the faith, but like again, the point of the faith, Like faith means
Any
believing without
religion based on
seeing.
the
Faith
contention that
means
truth
believing without
denies
seeing, dog.
faith.
So the
Don't
faith
call me a dog. I'm
means
not your dog, and I'm not your bro.
Okay. Hold
okay.
on a second, Pat. I got a question for you. So if just take everything out, just like open your mind up to just new thoughts, right?
Okay.
If you were trying to convince someone of something that wasn't true, what would be a good way to start the conversation? Would it be to just lay out the facts, or say, well, you just need to believe me. Just believe me and have, I'm not going to give you any evidence, but
Well,
you
I
just
can lay
need to
out some
believe me and
facts.
trust me.
Jesus Christ.
No.
Okay, Jesus
You're
of
not
Nazareth.
answering.
Jesus of
You're
Nazareth.
not answering my
Jesus of
question.
Nazareth is a factual figure. That is a fact. Is a
If you're
historical figure. That is a fact.
No, it's
you're
not.
not answering my question.
Jesus
My
of
question
Nazareth
is,
was a
if
historical figure. Look at ancient Roman, ancient Greek.
Pat, just answer my question. If you are trying to get someone to believe something that is not true, what kind of method can you do that to preface it so that they will believe you regardless of evidence? Is it, or is it not, just believe me, have faith, right?
Okay.
Now,
Yes,
if you want
of
them,
course.
now if you want them to believe you a little bit more, what better way is to sprinkle in a little bit of truth, like in your story that you're telling, and it's about an event that happened at a bowling alley. So you say a real bowling alley that's in your area, or you say, it's on this street, which is a real street. So you sprinkle in some reality amongst all this lie you're telling or untruth you're telling about some
I can say
events
the
or
same thing
something.
about the atheistic point of view.
There,
There's, you can sprinkle in some reality about Jesus or God not being real. It still doesn't dismiss the
is.
facts.
You're misunderstanding the atheist point of view. The atheist point of view is just, we don't believe that there is evidence enough to believe in a God. It is not we are providing evidence to not believe in a God. It's just that the evidence that's there doesn't support a belief in God because it's not sufficient. To believe in the supernatural, you need more evidence than you would need to believe in a bunny, right?
Well,
Because
can
But then
I
it
that
all
wouldn't be the
seems bunnies.
supernatural, right?
can I ask
If
a
you needed
question?
proof of a ghost, if you had
Nope.
video
Quit
evidence
saying
of a
proof.
Okay,
ghost,
hold on,
the
Evidence.
atheist would still say there is no ghost,
Hold on.
right?
Is it Jacob? Had a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah, I got a
Jacob.
question because you guys are saying how like atheists, like you guys need actual proof of like a higher power.
Sufficient evidence. Sufficient evidence.
Well, I don't know if it's like how you guys would take it, but I would go back onto like the four horsemen and the Antichrist, which would be more the opposite of Christ. And then if you guys are from the United States, I don't know if you guys know the Indians baseball team. Are you guys familiar with that? Well, the name, are you guys from the United States?
Yes.
Interesting, yeah.
So the name of that field back in 1994 was Jacobs Field, and then it moved to Progressive Field, and then if you actually look around like the city itself, there's like other things like the Cavaliers has like representations of like horses, and the building that it's on is Rocket Mortgage, and like I would have to like go into more depth about it, you know what I'm saying? But I find it strange that like even if you wanted to put my initials together, it would spell jar, and then if you put my father's initials together, it would spell tar, and I just like have like I mean, I don't know. I just find it a coincidence how like life itself is revolving around. So
You're seeing a lot of patterns out there, it sounds like.
well, yeah, I mean, even if you want to like take Indians and then you remove the S and the N, it spells in India, which they believe in the third eye and that your body's the temple.
Okay, you equating a lot of things.
Yeah, that's
What are you saying?
really loose connections here.
Can I just address
I'm
that?
sorry. It's just my personal opinion. What is
Can
revolving
I just address that? Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
As human
And then
beings,
and then I want to get Guts in next.
as human beings, we have evolved a, a, a way of absorbing information from our surrounding that means that we naturally seek to find patterns because it's how we understand our reality. And we like to experience, and also because we look for these patterns because it helps us, I think, to psychologically ground ourselves within our reality and make us feel somehow have an influence on reality. What you are doing has been happening throughout recorded and pre-record and before recorded history. Is what your brain is absorbing this information in an attempt to understand what that means and what you mean. But just because you can you can find patterns. It's the same as looking at clouds. We can look at clouds and go, "Oh, look, that one looks like an angel, or that one looks like a spaceship." Those patterns are what you perceive. That doesn't mean, because you perceive a pattern, that doesn't mean that will fulfill a prophecy that was written 1,500 years ago, relating to somewhere that they weren't predicting whether a sports field was going to be renamed or whether it was going to be called this or that. That is a natural human way, a human mind. That's how the human mind works. And we seek to understand our surroundings by seeing patterns, and those patterns are not there. They are a product of our mind and our imagination and our thought processes. They don't exist. They're not real. Just because
sometimes we oversee. We see too much.
Well, I mean, I could see that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe I just been thinking about this for too long.
Yes, you probably need to spend a little less time on the internet.
Well, the thing is that the patterns exist, but causality for the patterns does not. It's just we can identify patterns, but that doesn't mean there's a cause to those patterns.
Yeah, there could be correlation. Let's get what was Guts? What were you gonna say? Give you a chance in here.
I'm just listening so far. I don't have really anything to add so far.
Just wanted to give you an opportunity. Okay.
Thanks.
Jacob, one of the good things that you can know about your pattern recognition is that it's built in. The reason why it's so hard to shake is for the same reason that all of our ancestors just survived. Because if you're an ancient human living in the wild and you see a bush shake, and you hear the wind rattling, and you hear sounds coming in all different directions, you're going to run. And that's because if you don't, one of those times, you're going to get eaten. We have this ability to see patterns all the time, even when they're not there. And it's literally part of our survival.
It's evolution.
But it does go against us.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and we do, and sometimes, and there are certain people that do this more than others. We oversee patterns, which is to say we get false positives. And the reason it's evolutionary beneficial is that false positives generally don't really cost you much of anything. So we tend to have more false positives than false negatives. There tend to be more people with false positives than non-believers with false negatives who then get eaten for lunch.
It's kind of biological sort of version of Pascal's wager. The consequences of seeing the pattern and it not meaning anything are less than the consequences of just seeing the pattern and ignoring it and getting it.
I mean, it's shown that increases in ice cream sales correlates to an increase in shark attacks. So if we only cut down our ice cream sales, we would have less shark attacks, right?
Sorry, would you like me, Pat, to explain Pascal's wager to you?
I studied Pascal's wager.
Oh, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So Pascal's wager pretty much concludes even if there is a God or if there isn't a God, if you worship a God, there is a better chance of you being saved.
No,
even
it
if there
isn't.
isn't a
That's not
God,
what
because
that
there
isn't.
is still a chance that there is a God.
No,
That is
that
Pascal's
is,
wager.
How
is
many
to
religions
willfully-
are there?
That is to willfully misrepresent what Pascal's wager represents.
How many
So
religions
how
are
about you
there,
explain
Pat?
Pascal's wager, Bob?
Pat,
I'm sorry?
how many religions out there are there?
Pascal's
Or
wager is about
have
the
there
Christian
been?
God, Ralph.
Pat?
Pascal's wager is about the Christian God.
No, it's about any God. How many religions are there out there?
It is in the context of the Christian God. That is
It's in the
Pascal's wager.
context of any God or belief system.
No.
What
You know
if
who plays
any?
Pascal is, right?
Oh
Or
gosh,
was.
you're not understanding. You studied it, but you don't
Arguing with-
understand it.
Okay, Pat, what you're
What?
saying here, Pat, what you're saying here is that it's a true dichotomy. Either you believe in a specific God or you don't believe in a God. But let's be clear, the reason we're asking why are there so many religions is because if this is really a wager, as it has to be interpreted, if you know about Pascal,
Right.
he's saying, what is the choice here? It's either this or that in the scenario
The
that you're proposing.
choice is
Hang
there
on, Pat,
is
Pat,
no
Pat,
God or there
Pat,
is
hang
God.
on, Pat, hang on. However, are all of those gods the same? They're not. And so it's not a true dichotomy. It's a, do I believe in do I not have a belief in a God? Or is there a belief in any of these gods, not just the Christian
Essentially,
God?
he's saying he doesn't know whether there is or there isn't, but the consequences of ignoring that pattern and it not being are greater. It's just basically that's the reason I make the comment, is that this is a natural way in which human beings interact with our reality, is that we look at things, we think, well, that could be a big scary tiger, or it could just be the wind rustling in the trees. If we don't think that that's a big scary monster that's going to leap out and eat us, and it proves to be so, then we will get eaten, and we will, in our existence, we will cease to live. Okay, if we don't believe it, if we go, oh, it's nothing, it's just the bushes, and the reason I mentioned Pascal's wager is because I basically was saying that's just a natural expression of how human beings interact with our reality. If you want to get into the historical context of who Blaise Pascal was and who he was referring to and why, we can do that. But I don't think that our friend down at the bottom is necessarily equipped to have this conversation, and possibly needs to go away and do a little bit more reading on his first year history course. But anyway.
What does Pascal's wager ultimately conclude? That if there is a God, it is better to trust in him, because if there isn't a God.
No. If he says, if the consequences of my not worshipping this particular God are greater than the consequences of my not worshipping this God, he's not talking about belief, he's actually talking about following.
The consequences.
No, stop interrupting me, young man. He's not talking about whether there is or there isn't a God. What he is talking about is that the consequences of failing to follow the rules and failing to follow that particular iteration of the sky fairy, the consequences, if he does exist, are greater than if he doesn't. And if I might again go back to the analogy of the big scary monster or not existing in the and this is another problem I have with your religion, is it's based on fear. It's based on follow the rules, obey, believe blindly in something that we cannot prove, or you will burn. And you might say that your particular interpretation of the religion doesn't tell you that, but I'm telling you that it does, and it has been used repeatedly to do so.
So that your particular interpretation of the religion is as equal as somebody else's particular interpretation.
It's called history.
Yeah, hold on.
As a historian, we look at evidence, and we look at what consequences the existence of and the promulgation of your kind of faith, have had to the rest of humanity. And we can look at other faiths if you like as well, because they have been equally harmful in their own way. But I think Christian, your iteration of the Middle Eastern monotheism has been particularly damaging because it has been particularly successful in spreading itself across the world.
How's that?
Yeah, it's
How's it been
successful.
harmful?
Oh, because it's successful, that must make it right. Might is right.
How has it
is
been
it?
harmful? You have an answer.
How has it been harmful? Would you like a list?
Of course.
Do you think coercion is good?
Oh. Successful. Would you like a list of how harmful Christianity has been?
He's in another tab or something. Probably maybe want to go
maybe
look up the word coercion.
Yeah, I can think of like 20 off the top of my head.
I can start. Shall we do this chronologically or thematically?
So
How has it been harmful?
How has it been harmful? Right.
Multiple other religions have been harmful. Christianity is not harmful in itself. It is the way people interpret it or the way people preach it.
Anything written can be interpreted. That doesn't.
Exactly. Anything can be interpreted as harmful.
Part of the problem.
So
Anything can be
then
interpreted
let's
as
not
harmful.
have
That's
any
not biasing
religion.
against
So let's not have
It's
any
not biasing against Christianity. It's not like, so you're gonna bias against Christianity because it's interpreted as harmful. Anything can be interpreted as harmful.
Any religion can be interpreted when anything with a sacred that claims to be the one and only.
I did actually say at the beginning.
Exactly. So it's not a fair.
Stop talking, mate. I did actually say at the beginning that I could refer to other faiths if you like. I can talk about Islam, I can talk about Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. But I happen to be talking to a Christian.
So talk about Christianity as harmful, and then also refer to Hinduism, Buddhism, whatever else is harmful. Inequality.
Well, if you stop talking, I will do. Okay, we can start.
Okay, so then we'll do.
We can start with Crusades, if you like. We can start with
the Christian Church has admitted the Crusades were not good. That is a flaw in the Christian faith, but there has been flaws in every other faith as well.
Christians out there who celebrate the Christian.
Nobody. Okay, if anybody celebrates the Crusades,
Vice President Vance, for example, your
Vice President Vance also wanted to burn all the gays. That's not in accord with the Christian faith.
Oh well, no, it so is.
How?
Which part of Leviticus is it that tells you you should be condemned to death? That's been interpreted as
not condemned to death.
What? No, really? What about condemned to death for wearing mixed fibers? That's in your Bible as well.
What? You cut out. I'm sorry.
Shall I pull out my Bible here and tell you where it talks about that?
Where it talks about what?
Like I can read you scripture about what should happen to gay people if you'd like.
Yeah, it says those who lie with another man shall be burned. Of course, it does. Yeah, so it doesn't.
No, we can stay away.
If you have sex with another man,
we can just look at the harmful impact of Christianity across the time, if you like. I don't really want to get into what your Bible may or may not say because you can interpret it, and that's part of the reason that it's been that it exists in the way that it does because it's so open to interpretation. That
you can even pull in more recent stuff. I mean, there's slavery and stuff, but that's been gone over a million times. But more recent stuff is like the forced, we're gonna force you not to be homosexual and stuff like that. Those institution stuff that is purely unadulterated, harmful, and brought in by Christianity. There's a term
slavery, imperialism, the Inquisition. What else?
Now, I will grant on the side of Christianity that a lot of these things are not really in the name of the faith. Like if you really believe the true Christian stuff, that maybe you could say that some of that stuff wasn't because of Christianity itself, but because of people wanting to stay in power. But that also applies for a lot of other things that Christianity tries to blame on atheists, like what North Korea is doing or China and stuff like this. It's the same thing. Like people in power want to stay in power. They want to control other people, and they will manipulate religion, whatever religions there,
That's why
or even
Christianity was
non-religion, to enforce their own person as godhood, whatever it is, to try to have power and dominate and control more territory and stuff like that. So I don't blame
What
all that
Christianity was
stuff
created
on
for.
religion itself, but on man.
It's what
Okay,
Christianity
so-
was created for, in my
Right.
opinion. And it has
I
been
agree
used
with you.
for
People
over-
use Christianity and other religions in order to control other people.
Yeah,
And
that's
of
my
course,
point.
as you said, they use other religions.
Pat,
It's like it's
Pat,
not just
let me address
Christianity.
that. Let me
It's
address
not
that
just
specifically.
Christianity. They use every other religion to control people.
So Pat, hang on. There's 2 points to this. First is I'm going to shift it a little bit away from the morality, but understand that responding to there are these immoral things that happen when you ask for a list, to then respond with, well, we're not the only ones, isn't a particularly great response.
Not
But
exactly.
more
no.
importantly, I don't know, but I suspect, like with most atheists, if you were to ask the people up here why they haven't been convinced of a god yet, or just that they're not convinced, it very likely has nothing to do with the moral claim. There are plenty of things that I don't like in this world. However, they're brute facts. And so whether or not, if there's an evil sky god who's throwing meteors at us, if that's the case, I would want to know that thing. So the moral claim really has no hold on me.
I would suggest that
Okay, so then-
the religions have been used and are used continually, not only to not support this idea of morality, because people like you often ask us, where do you get your morality from if you don't have a religion? Actually, your religion is religions are overwhelmingly used to justify immorality.
I would want to know, regardless of the moral
what immorality is used to justify by the Christian faith?
Really?
Taking another person's life.
Really?
Wow!
What?
Literally, one of the 10 Commandments says, "You shall not kill another."
And
The
Yeah,
easiest one is
the next
slavery.
chapter, 40,000 Israelites are killed because they unalived, because they were worshipping an idol.
Yeah, because they're worshipping an idol.
Yes.
Hey,
Go look it up.
Yes.
It's in Genesis.
So one of God's children cannot unalive another one of God's children.
Okay, so
But of
Pat,
course
you're
God
Pat,
can.
hang on, let's examine that. Let's examine
Worse,
that, Pat.
God can, so that makes God a very evil, immoral.
Thou shalt not.
creature.
I'll do it.
Hey, Phil, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, so one question. So here's the problem. You have the Catholic Church who will excommunicate a priest who turns in somebody who confess to them through confession that they've done something to a child. But in the meantime, if a priest did something to a child, they'll just ship them off and shake it under the rug. So, I mean, that's the problem. And you have religion who has done many, many crimes against children. And then you have basically in America, they want to basically tell you that to protect your children against who? The trans community. And it's funny because the Catholic Church, they're the ones who are committing so many crimes against children.
That's not a problem of the Bible. That is a problem of the religious culture.
Let me say yes.
But that's
that is what Believe in Reality said. Yes, that is not a problem of the Bible. That is a problem in the religious culture. I am not saying the Catholic Church is infallible. Of course, it is
Sorry, can I
filled
ask you a
with
question?
people.
Are you a
Of course,
Catholic?
it is fallible.
Are you a
But
Catholic? Are you a Catholic?
Yes, I'm
Right.
a Catholic.
Okay.
So you're a Catholic.
No. You want me to talk about how your religion
how do you allow?
has been
Let
deliberately
Bob
and
speak.
willfully
Hey,
harmful.
let Bob speak.
Right. You're a Catholic.
Bob, go ahead.
You're a Roman Catholic. You believe in the infallibility of the Pope, right?
No. Oh, no.
Oh no, you don't. So you're not a Catholic then.
I am a Catholic, but I believe the Pope is a human. He
No,
can
you
make
don't have a but.
mistakes.
You have.
He can
You're
make
a Catholic
mistakes.
and you're
And let
not.
him
Right.
tell us what
Okay.
he
I think you
believes.
believe in
Nowhere in the
Catholic
Catholic
principles.
doctrine does it say the Pope is infallible.
Oh, it does.
Where? Where?
Well, not in the Bible. It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say it in the
The
Bible.
Bible
It
does not
says
say the Pope is infallible. I am a Catholic, and I am saying the Pope is infallible. The Pope
right.
can be false sometimes because the Pope is
Sometimes.
human,
All right.
and the
So,
Pope should
so you
be
want
the
to ask
first
the
among
question. You
equals.
ask the question. How have I got evidence for the fact that your specific iteration of the Christian faith has been actively, deliberately harmful to the world? Okay, I can give you a specific example. Do you know who Opus Dei are?
Enlighten me.
All right, they are an organization within the Catholic Church set up in Spain by, I think his name was Padre Pio, who I think has recently been demi-deified. I think you call it being made into a saint. And it was an organization that acted as the religious arm of a gentleman by the name of Francisco Franco Beaumont. Do you know who that was? Do you know who Francisco Franco Beaumont was? You can unmute now.
He's looking something up or something.
Do you know who Francisco Franco Beaumont was?
No, please
No,
enlighten
you
me.
don't. He was the military dictator of Spain from 1939 to 1974.
So people
75,
can't
sorry.
change, is what you're saying.
No. Listen to me. You asked me to give you evidence as to how your church has been actively harmful. Now, during that 40-year period, the Catholic Church connived at the removal and sale of over 300,000 children from their parents to their co-religionists. Right? This happened. This is a demonstrable historical fact, and it happened with it was organized by the Roman Catholic Church. Okay?
What did
By
they
a
do?
man,
They
including
sold
by a
children,
man
you
who has
said?
now been made into a saint. Yes. Go look it up.
Okay.
No, these were people, these were babies and young children who were taken from their parents and literally sold by the Catholic Church. Right?
What?
With
Okay.
the connivance of,
what exactly do you want me to look up?
Oh yes, you are going
the
to need
children
to
that were sold by the Catholic Church. What is what is it called? What do I look up?
I would. Well, do some research. Go away and read it. Okay, I'm not here to. Right. Okay.
What do you want me to read?
Well, you can start.
I can give him a search term if you want. Bob.
You're not giving me anything to read. I cannot believe you because you're not giving me any evidence.
Okay. Hang on. I shouldn't be having to do this for you. Just, I don't know. You could Google the Franco, and well, you could look up Franco and the Roman Catholic Church, if you like. Francisco Franco Beaumont.
Internet sloth, you said you could answer.
Yeah, I could give you some things to Google, although I think that Bob just gave you effectively what I was going to say. But what I really want to ask you about, and I know you're Googling out of tab, so it's okay if you want to read that for a moment. But what I really want to know is why, when he gave you a super specific example, without even hearing the rest of the details, without looking it up, as you're having to do now, your immediate response was no. You didn't look into it.
I said
because the answer is because they're not.
Tell me. I said, tell me what you want me to look up. I
never
said no. I never said no. I said, tell me what you want me to look up.
Hang on, Pat.
Okay, go look it up, Pat.
We all were sitting here. I want to be clear. I understand that reaction. I was a hardcore Christian apologetic. So, I can understand when someone says something against your faith, I would immediately respond no. I don't think you did it intentionally. And I'm not holding it against you. I'm just saying, as someone who is sitting here listening, he was in the middle of explaining what happened, and he said, this happened. And before he even finished the sentence, he said, no. And then you kind of went off a little bit. Like you kind of petered out a little bit for a second and went, I need to Google this. Maybe
Okay.
instead, like, I'm not telling you, and I'm not saying anything about your character. I'm just saying you might want to reflect on why you're immediately responding no to something you haven't looked at yet.
Okay,
Mate,
you know
I
what?
haven't even
That is
finished. I
fair.
haven't
I
started
am
yet.
sorry. Wait.
I haven't
I am
started
sorry
yet.
that I immediately like. Look, I don't think I said no. I am sorry
I
that I
haven't
immediately
started yet.
interrupted you
We can
and
talk
tried
about
to
the
refute.
fourth removal
Let
of
me
children of
respond,
their sale
Bob.
by your
Let me
church.
respond.
No,
Let me
you
respond,
haven't got a response. Listen,
Bob.
right?
I have a
No,
response. I am
go
I am
on.
I am apologizing for trying to interrupt you. Like, will you not let go of your pride a little bit? I'm apologizing for trying to interrupt you. Okay, like I admit I've not done my research on that specific thing that you have tried to argue, but I don't
I'm
think I
not
said
arguing. I'm
no. I
telling you
said
facts. You asked the question: how has your church been harmful? Okay, been harmful. I've just given you one massive example, and this is a situation that ended in
and I haven't found
1975.
any articles.
The people who were the victims of that are still with us and are still experiencing the negative consequences of that. Okay? You could also talk about the murders, the hundreds of thousands of people murdered by that regime, which came with the blessing of your church, right? And these people are
When?
still looking for justice because every time they ask
Who is
for
being
it,
murdered? Who is being
Hold on a
murdered under
second.
the name of Jesus
Pat,
Christ?
Pat,
Who is being
who is
murdered
being
under the name of
murdered
Jesus Christ?
under the name of
Tell
Jesus
me.
Christ?
Bob, hold on a second. Kimmy's been asking to come up and say something, and he's up here now. So, Kimmy, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just like following along with the commentary, and so I'm not sure what actually is the argument right now, but I I thank you, host, for bringing me up. I just felt like
Yeah, I didn't. It's okay. I didn't see a initial invitation, but I
it's okay,
appreciate you asking. So
but thank you so much. But I mean, if you could clarify like the subject right now, I'm sure I have an opinion.
Londo, I need to give you a little time out until there's a slot. So turning things over for a bit.
I think we're just really chatting about. We've ended up on kind of the morality of the Christian faith, but we're not really. I don't think any of us up here are atheists because we find a specific religion immoral. I mean, we can go all day about the immorality of the Christian or the Islamic faith, or I can go to completely non-Abrahamic faiths. That's fine. But like I said, if there was an evil God, I would still want to know.
Right.
It wouldn't make me go, nah. I would still want to know that thing.
Right, but elaborate, please.
Yeah, so Pat was originally asking for evidence of bad things committed by, like, that are, quote, have been, I would say, kind of caused by the church. And
Or the Christian
it was,
God.
yeah, well, oh. Okay, so
Negative
hang on.
things?
You're saying only by the
Yeah.
Christian God?
Well, I'm arguing. I don't know. This whole debate has gone, in so many places. I think the main argument of, this moment is
Every
like,
time you're
Bob
challenged,
was
you step
saying
onto
that.
something else.
What? What did you say?
Because every time you're challenged, and every time what you're saying is proved to be demonstrably nonsense, you flip onto something else.
But how do I know
Pat,
that
really,
you are not arguing
Pat,
nonsense?
I
I
gave
haven't
you
found
Pat,
any
a,
Pat, hang
articles
on.
I
I
gave
can,
of
you
I
your
can,
a
Whoa, whoa,
arguing
whoa,
specific
for
whoa.
it.
example,
One person
specific
at a
example of
time. I
how
can't
harmful your
hear.
religion has been, and
I
you
haven't
flipped
found
onto something else.
anything aiding your argument. So how do I know that you're not arguing nonsense, Bob?
Because
I'm
I've got the
arguing my
receipts.
God, the Christian. I'm arguing that my God, the Christian God,
The
is a
Catholic
good
God,
God and he
the
is real.
Catholic
That is
God.
my main argument. He is a
No,
good God and he is real. They are
you're a
arguing
Catholic,
that
right?
he is either not real or is not a good
It's
God.
it's very
no,
simple, right?
we're not arguing that.
All
Use
right, one
To be
Google.
clear,
person
we
at a
That is what you
time.
guys are
Hey, yeah,
arguing.
yeah.
Whoa,
Slow down,
whoa,
slow
whoa.
down, slow down. Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
one person at
You
a
go
time.
away and Google the Catholic Church: An Unresolved Past by the European Academy for the Research into Religion and the Social Sciences. Just one. Just have a bit of a read on that, and it's actually quite a mild article.
What is it called?
I
The
mean,
Catholic Church and the Unresolved Past?
it's called "The Catholic Church in Spain: An Unresolved Past."
I mean, you don't
Put that
even
in
have to
there.
go to something
I'll read it.
like that. You can just look up, why did the Protestant church break away from the
Protestants are
Catholic?
waiting for. Okay, look.
Just let me finish.
I'll let you finish.
Uh,
All right, fair enough, fair enough.
why did the Protestant church break away from the Catholic Church? And the simple answer to that is because the Catholic Church was selling absolution from sin or forgiveness of sin for money.
Yeah.
Right? There's a
Right.
lot more to it, right? It's a lot more nuance. There's a lot more stuff to it. But that was the big part of it. It's like, here's your absolution from sin. Here's your forgiveness for the things you're doing wrong. That'll be $10, please. Right?
Right.
And it's
Exactly.
a
So
method of control and getting money and profit and stuff. And you can see it all through Europe and the churches, that it was a funnel for money to the people who were influential and could convince people of their lies in
And
order
to
to
pay
gain
for war,
control and power and
and
money and influence.
and to
and
pay,
and
and for the Pope to pay for his wars in Italy.
I mean, and the same thing still holds true today. Like Joel Osteen, in Texas, he has this mega church of people contributing to him, and they have millions and millions and billions of dollars. But then when the hurricane hit, he didn't open his church up to the people that needed him. So there is a hypocrisy that comes with being the only vessel that allows a person to connect with God by being a church person.
Right.
So so just saying, you have to really factor in like historical values and political values. Unfortunately, you have to factor that in to why a church does what they do. Why are they
Of
doing this?
course.
Because yeah.
well,
There
Pat,
are,
let
of
me
course,
address that. Pat,
especially
because Pat,
in the mid wait, hold on, especially in the Midwest, there are many quote unquote Christian cults. There ever since the Great Schism started by Martin Luther, there have been many, religions that have been led by ego, pride, you know, human, values and stuff that have led into cults, have led into, miscommunications, all that. That is not what the Christian God stands for. That's not what, what at least me as a Catholic, as I stand for,
Go look
and
up
I know that
Opus
sounds,
Dei.
kind of
Pat, can I ask you about
flawed.
that specifically? Pat,
Yeah, we
this
can
is
talk
what I
about the
wanted to
Catholic
address
Church
Go for it.
specifically.
specifically if you
Go for it.
like.
Go for it.
We
Hang
can
on just
talk
one
about
second,
covering
Bob.
up the
Bob, hang on
Chinese
Wait,
just one
internet, go
Hey,
second.
for it.
and
Bob,
talk
hold
about
on for a second.
fascism.
Go ahead, internet
Pat,
slow.
what you asked Bob for, and to be honest, Bob is being very patient. What you asked for was examples of things the Catholic Church that have done that are wrong or immoral, and he has provided a number of them, and one of them in particular we can go into and verify. And then in response to that, the burden has now shifted from your last statement to anything that the Christian God has done wrong. And so
The
you can
Christian does not
understand
do
that would be
anything awful. It is human
Wait, wait,
beings.
wait.
well, Bob,
Let him finish, man.
Bob, or sorry, not Bob, Pat. You really need to, like, instead of bursting out with that passion, hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying anything about the Christian God yet. You asked Bob for things that the Catholic Church has done wrong. He provided those. And instead of responding to those bad things, your response was to then move on and say, what has the Christian God done wrong? Can you tell me anything
Oh,
about that? And what
I'm
I
not.
want to
That's not what I
know.
responded to Bod. I responded that to Kimmy. But
Okay,
fair
so
enough. Fair
so
enough.
what
Fair
do you
enough.
want to? So is there anything? Is there any amount of crimes against humanity that could be directly endorsed, and the people who did them directly endorsed by the Catholic Church, that would make you say that it was somehow endorsed by the Christian religion? Like, is there any amount of horrid atrocity that would change your mind? Do you care?
Okay, so I would say no atrocity has been endorsed by God, but yes, atrocities across history have been endorsed by the Christian faith or the Catholic Church.
I mean,
Yes,
I just have to ask her.
because the Catholic Church and the Christian faith have been falsely headed by humans. So
Okay,
yes, of
Pat, so
course,
there's no point,
atrocities
if I'm
have been endorsed
understanding
by
you,
As
humans.
if God wouldn't know that
Pat,
that the Bible is read by humans.
yeah, that's a
So
bit of a problem. But Pat, my real
what,
problem here
Ernest,
is that you're really
How?
just
Wait,
saying,
No,
Pat,
let's go
Pat,
back to what he said.
no,
But what
Pat,
do you mean
I'm
the
addressing what you're saying. I'm
okay?
addressing what you said.
Go for it.
Are you telling me, this is just a yes or no, that there are no amount of atrocities that could be committed by the Catholic Church? Keep in mind, the Pope in your faith is in a direct connection with God.
I mean, that's obviously ridiculous because all of the people that
Well,
are in control are human beings. Of course, there's.
okay, but hang
I
on,
mean, I'm sorry, I was just
Pat.
answering for him, but
Well, Pat,
of course there's
is there
lack.
okay.
any amount of, like, let's just say, and this is ironic because if you know the history, it is actually a bit of a problem. Let's just say the Catholic Church had a little bit to do with what Mustache Man did.
Okay. Just
Let's say
hypothetically,
maybe
right?
instead of being tangentially related, they directed it. Let's just hypothetically, would you cut
Hypothetically.
ties with the Catholic Church?
Mm, yeah, of course.
You
I cut
don't
ties with
need
the
to
Catholic
be always
Church, but I would not cut ties
hypothetical. I've
with
given you
God.
evidence of how the Roman Catholic Church repeatedly connived with
But
fascism,
that was not the
with its
entire.
fascist
Okay, see,
dictatorship,
but
with
you
hundreds of
are
thousands of people in the name of the Roman Catholic
you
religion.
are encapsulating the entire Roman Catholic Church within one body, dude. There are millions,
Within
millions,
one,
millions, millions of
no,
people all around the
actually, I'm
world in the Catholic Church
encapsulating it
that do
within
not
several
agree with
hundred
what you are
thousand
Yo, in
saying.
my
members.
personal opinion, I don't care what the fuck religion you are. Any like atheists, Catholics, Christians, Buddhism,
Atheism is not a religion.
Judaism. I honestly don't really fucking know. I honestly don't give a shit on like what religion you are. You're pretty much a human being, and you're pretty much arguing about what the fuck is this, what the fuck is that. Like, bro, it's not
But
even
all right,
worth it.
but what? But what?
Okay.
But this is what the
Well,
debate is about, dog.
But
Pat,
Ralph,
This is the debate.
continue, Ralph. Like, what do you mean? Wait, let
Yeah,
Ralph
Like,
continue.
Go
you
on,
you
go
can you
on,
can
go
take
on.
if you want to actually debate, you can take this to Twitter.
Yeah, but we
No,
know that.
we're
But
debating
what
here,
beyond that?
dog. Get out of
What
here,
else from
Ralph. Go
that?
on, Ralph. Go
Bro, if
on.
you
You've
want to
made
debate, take that to Twitter.
Joshua,
No,
are you 18, Joshua?
So this is the debate.
No, I'm
Like, it
16,
doesn't
but I
matter
got
what
big
All
platform
right,
we're
concepts and a
on.
lot of adults
I have a
here.
question. I have a question. If I could just say, because of all the religion, right? Let's say that everything that deals with Jesus, whether Catholic or Christian, and he says like love one another, right? And the only message that I received that I accept from Jesus is that of forgiveness, right? Because forgiveness is a powerful message. It tells us to forgive those that came before us, right? Like our mom, our dad. Like maybe they were just humans. Maybe they didn't know like the end all. They
Exactly. It
didn't
was their first
know.
time living.
But let me just say something right quick and I'll finish. But it's like you have to let them off the hook at some point because at some point we hold them responsible. Like they should have known. Look, bro, they're you. Okay? They're you, they're me, and they're just people. And we're just trying to do the best we can. Also, the message I got from Jesus was forgiveness was also about me. Like I also have to forgive myself. And I have to let myself off the hook for being a fucking bad parent to my kids because I'm working with what I got and I don't understand everything. And so I feel like the most important message is forgiveness. Okay? Because
Amen.
I really got that message, but also real quick, I'll end my plane, but um the rest of the dogma of the Bible and all the written word about all the other bullshit is just like a bunch of bullshit to me. Like, I'm not going to hoop through any hoops. I'm not going to jump through any hoops. Like, like, no, like at some point I have to realize that people tend to gravitate and attach to um a book because it tells them that, but I'm a deep diver, so I realize that the things that apply to actual human nature are really like small and far and few between. But if you're gonna talk to me about uh I mean there's so many things in the Bible that says like, oh, I rape my kids and then it's like that's what happened then. It's not happening now,
Watch
but I
your
really
watch your
believe
language.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I'm sorry.
you should
But I
use
really
grace
believe
for it.
the spiritual message is one that we could take that we could apply to ourselves right now, right here.
But
Okay, right now.
but
I'm
Kimmy,
so sorry. Thanks for listening.
but Kimmy,
So
I understand that, but couldn't we read a better like self-help book or something from a positive person? Don't you think that we could get Phil,
Yeah.
maybe help me out, like somebody like there's a lot of great like inspirational stuff out there. We don't need the Bible for that.
yeah,
Yeah,
Lando,
but
what I was going to say
Yeah.
is Pat is what you're getting to is you're like you're Roman Catholic, but you don't believe in all the stuff the church believes, and well, these events have occurred. Those aren't good events. Those were people who made mistakes and stuff like that. However, it's repeated over and over and over again. And at some point, I would hope you come to the realization that this organization itself is not good. I mean, you talk about the schism to with Protestants and everything, but there's also the other schism with the Russian Orthodox versus
The
the
Great
Roman
Schism was
Catholic and stuff like
the
that.
Catholic.
That exists throughout. But what you're basically arguing is the no true Scotsman. So
Yeah.
those individuals or whatever are not real Christians because they do not believe in exactly how I believe. So they're not really Christians or they're not really Catholics.
I never
But
said that.
I
but
mean,
I can't
well,
make
you
that
didn't
claim
say
because
that,
I'm
but
not
you did
God.
because you're excusing the unexcusable acts by this
I'm not
organization.
excusing
You're
no,
anybody.
no,
excusing
no.
All
crimes
I
against
said was I never
humanity.
found an article around the Padre Pio, child thing that Bob was arguing. I
No,
never
I'm
said
not
I
arguing.
excused
I'm giving
them,
you evidence. That's not an
no,
argument.
and I
no,
never
no,
You
found
asked
that
for evidence
evidence.
and
I
I
never
gave
found the
it you.
no,
evidence.
no. But what
I
I'm
never found the
saying is,
evidence.
it doesn't matter about all that. That
You
nothing
Right.
did.
matters
I
about
mean,
that
Kimmy, what you're
because
saying is great. I mean, if you take all the good parts of about the Bible and pull them out and ignore all the bad parts, if you take all the good parts out of the Quran, the Hindu texts or whatever those are, I don't know what they are, but
it's
if you take all the good parts out, all the religion, you'll have a really good thing. But
Yeah.
the thing is, you can't take any one of them and just say this one is
But
true or that one's true,
no,
because to
nothing's
accept
true. But the message of the deliverer that said
the
forgiveness. I mean,
the
Jesus' only
message.
message was love and forgiveness. That's
No, he
it.
had lots of
Nothing
other
else.
messages too.
Kimmy, have you read the Bible?
Oh, for fuck's sake! Are you
No,
kidding
no,
me?
Kimmy, I'm not insulting you. I'm genuinely asking for
Yeah, of
background
course I
knowledge
have.
before I
But I
respond.
actually met.
Okay, so you have
I mean,
read the
all the
Bible,
rest of
right?
it is dogma and political. What I'm
Kimmy,
saying is that every
can
human
I,
being
Kimmy, hang
just.
on. Kimmy,
Oh,
hang on.
okay.
I was asking if you read the Bible so that I could ask you a question.
All right, go ahead.
Because a lot of Christians, the majority, in fact, from my experience, have not actually read the Bible. That's why I have to ask.
And
So
a lot of Christians have not experienced actual forgiveness, which is so magical.
I promise, Kimmy, I respect that you have a personal feeling about this, but I don't really need to know like your own personal experience in this way. What I want to ask you is you're saying that nothing matters except the message delivered. Do you believe in Jesus being the direct mouth of God?
Yeah, but what does that matter?
Do
The
you
point
hang on?
is,
Kimmy,
is his message.
Kimmy. Instead of jumping back and preaching at me, you believe that God's commands are valid, correct?
No, no, that's the
You,
point that you're missing. That's the point you're missing. The point is that the message that the man came down to deliver, if you study deep into forgiveness, that was the message. That was the
you
message.
don't
The message
you don't believe that the
wasn't
God of
all
the
the other.
Bible is the one you're following?
He believes the
So
good
you don't
parts.
follow God, you only follow Jesus.
He follows the good parts of
No, I
Jesus, but not the
followed
bad parts.
forgiveness.
Okay, so
I
you're not a
followed the
Christian then.
message that he came to give. That's what I follow.
Kimmy, you cannot read the Bible and separate Jesus of Nazareth
I
that you're
can.
talking about.
No, I can.
There is no way textually in any faith on this planet except for some very, very specific, like I would say, quote unquote, Christian breakaways that just throw
Well,
out the Bible in a lot of
I
ways.
mean, the topic is Ask an Atheist. So I'm just
Okay,
saying, personally, as a human being on the planet, I delve deep into the spiritual, into my spiritual self, and I studied all the spiritual concepts. And the fact that I took away that forgiveness was the message that he gave, and he put it down, I picked it up. Okay, so I
okay.
realize that that applies to me, but I'm not willing to believe in all the rest. I don't need the rest of the dogma. I got the message from
Kimmy,
him to
let's
me.
go to what Jesus says. Let's go directly to Jesus's word in the Bible. Why don't we?
All right, all
So
right.
when Jesus says that he comes not to get rid of the old laws, he's talking about the laws and the rules of the God of the Old Testament, correct? So you're listening to Jesus, the one that you're
I have
saying that
no
you
idea.
follow for forgiveness.
Okay.
You have no idea?
No, I don't know. I got my message. That's all I got. That's what I'm going with.
I really
No, I
suggest you
don't.
go back and read the Gospels again,
I don't
because
have
Jesus
to.
says
I
he
don't
does
have
not come
to.
to get rid of the old laws.
I do not have to follow any history or any dogma outside of a personal human connection with the principles that he taught. That set me free, and that's it. I don't want to
I'm
hear the rest of
concerned
the
about
political bullshit.
Matthew 34,
Yeah, I'm
'What
pretty
that
10
lost
say?
here.
34, where he says, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be enemies of his own household. I'm concerned about that passage.
I mean, he's actually saying right there that, like, for me, example, let's say I get his message about forgiveness, but he's not trying to cut me up like I'm doing with the woman that's talking to me. It's like, you know,
What?
it's like a very simple message. Like I'm not trying to be cut
Kimmy,
up
where
by
did
a
you get that
sword.
out of that scripture?
Yeah.
He's saying to take up swords and to end people within your own family. So
Well,
can
I'm
you tell me
taking it
where
like
within that passage you're
rhetorically.
getting that, okay, so you only take what Jesus is saying there rhetorically. Why are you doing that? I'm just
Well, I'm
curious.
taking it like metaphorically, like symbolically,
Right, but
because
It's
why?
symbolically, it's not a
I'll
good thing.
tell
It's
you.
not a good thing. It says, but whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father. I'm not come here to beg praise.
That's not the same message. What he's saying is because I got the message and that other people might come up against me because they don't get the message, that they might come up against me, like the woman on here that's coming up against me and says I'm not true.
So
Like
I will put
what
them
I'm
down
saying
with
is
I will
not
put them
true.
down with a sword. That's his nice outcome. I will turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law.
I mean, it actually might be,
I mean,
but
I'm
could I
not
just
Kimmy, I'm
ask?
not suggesting
No,
that he doesn't have other good things that he said,
no,
but
I know,
it's there's some inconsistency here.
but could I ask you all,
Yeah.
like, what has forgiveness? Like, could you actually, like, tell me the deep level that forgiveness, what effect has it had on your life?
Here's the thing, Kimmy. We can have forgiveness without religion,
Yeah.
without Jesus.
No, I'm
That's
asking, what did forgiveness
Well,
have on your life?
Okay, Kimmy, hang
Here,
on.
I don't want to
What?
read scripture, this, that. I
Okay,
want to know personally.
Kimmy, rather than, so what you're going to run into here is a bit of a problem because what you're doing, and I know because I have done it for years in my past, is we're trying to ask you things about the Bible and try to get some answers out of it in response. And I'm sure we're happy to answer because it is Ask an Atheist. But if your intent is to ask, what intent does forgiveness have on your life? If you're trying to reach and pull like the emotion out of have we felt forgiveness in our lives, that has nothing
Wait,
to do with whether or not there's a God.
I can't hear you, first of all. Sorry.
You got
But I mean,
you got
why?
muffled for a second there, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Like the concept of whether or not we've been forgiven in our lives by other people has nothing to do with our belief in a God. A God is a much higher claim than that.
That's
And in
ridiculous.
particular,
I mean, are you serious?
Kimmy, hang on. Rather than doing that, because a, a supreme ruler of the entire universe is a much more important concept than whether or not I personally feel forgiven. It has nothing to do with
No,
my feelings.
no,
But
no,
more
no.
importantly, Kimmy, we've done, many of us up here, I know myself personally, have done what you're doing now, which is going,
Yep.
tell me about your forgiveness story to
Well,
try to
can you
bring
tell me
people into
about
the
it?
faith.
Could you tell me? No, I'm just saying, could you actually
Can I
tell me
address your
about
question?
forgiveness?
How has
Hold
forgiveness
on, Bob. Let her
directly
finish.
affected
Let her
me?
finish commenting, and then you can come in next.
I mean, I'm always like, nobody actually entertains my idea of.
I'm sorry. You are trying. It does say ask an atheist, and we're not responding to that. What has forgiveness done in my life? I've been forgiven by some very, very level-headed people who forgave me for being a really, really reckless and stupid person sometimes. And that has been incredibly helpful. And I've had very, very patient people with me who have had many more mistakes than I have.
Okay, has that set you free
Easy
because of
one.
that?
Speaking of
Not in the slightest.
perception of forgiveness and
Not in the
reducing attachment
slightest. I
after
mean, that's
What do you mean by
surprising.
free? No one's made me free.
I mean,
I create my own freedom.
What? That's so
I create my
surprising
own
because it
freedom.
actually says in the Bible, the
I
truth
don't
will
care
set
what it
you
says in
free.
the
And
Bible. What does this have to do
How's it going,
with
bro?
Kimmy?
the truth is
What
about
is
forgiveness. I mean, if you're
why are you
talking
quoting the
Bible
Bible,
talk,
Kimmy?
Yeah, man. Thanks, man. Oh, fuck
Kimmy,
it.
what the
Want
Bible
any,
says? Hey
some
Pat, you're
chocolate
off
covered
mute.
in pathetic
Hey,
little
Pat,
man?
you've been
but
reading.
you're
Okay,
coming at me with the
one
Bible,
conversation.
so
One conversation.
Shit, man.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah,
bro. Appreciate it.
Kimmy, what does I think
Oh,
Pat's
that's
talking to
good.
someone in real life and doesn't know? Yeah, there we go. Kimmy, when I say that I have my own freedom and I'm talking about things that I have in reality, why are you responding with the Bible? I don't care what it says in the Bible.
well, I'm not sure why we're arguing because I
You
don't
asked
care
me.
about the Bible either, so I'm not sure what's happening.
So why are you telling me about the Bible in response to why I'm saying that I have my own freedom that I create?
I'm
What,
just talking about a
why?
word called forgiveness, not a Bible, no book, no nothing. I'm talking about the word and the principle forgiveness. So I'm not sure why you're asking me anything
Did
about what I'm saying.
did
I'm
forgiveness
lost.
originate from the Bible?
No, it's a human principle.
Okay, so what point does religion or Christianity or anything have to do with forgiveness? You can
Well, the
forgive
only point
without any relationship to the Bible or Jesus' teaching whatsoever.
I'm just saying that when I looked into religion, that what I got from Jesus is that he told me about forgiveness, obviously died on the cross, whatever. And so I got that message from him, which applied to my life when I was 29 years old. But I could have come across that message before that if I were in a situation where I would have come across it. But that's my entire point is like Jesus' entire existence was about forgiveness and nothing else. And I'm
Kimmy,
not saying he came up with that word. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that was my experience with it.
Kimmy, what about the 2,000 pigs he killed?
I'm not saying I respect or whatever support Jesus. I'm saying that's the one human principle tenet or principle that I learned that he gave was about forgiveness. What I'm saying is people that say they love Jesus, whatever, I'm saying only look to forgiveness. It's a human principle. And because he brought that up, he, whatever, personified it because look, I don't believe in any of this bullshit, okay?
Do
But
you
because
know?
I studied,
So like you don't, Kimmy, so you don't actually, okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, and I'm genuinely confused here, this is why I'm asking. So you're not like a Christian in the sense that like you believe in God or
no,
you
no,
believe in the
no,
holiness. You truly
no.
you just believe that they're literary references. That's why like you
Yes,
don't care about the
yes,
rest of the Bible. So you're
yes,
not a
yes,
Christian. You just believe
yes,
that the literary dude Jesus said some good things sometimes.
yes, yes.
Okay, that's why I think we're all so confused, as we thought you were a Christian.
No, 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 hell no.
Yeah, that's
That
why we're
helps.
lost.
That helps a lot.
I'm sorry. I'm a little bit like, ADHD, so I'm sorry.
Because
I
I was
don't
gonna
really.
say, wasn't there like a Buddhist guy like 500 years before Jesus that talked about, do, what was it? The do unto others as you want them to do unto you. I mean, I think there was other religions talking about this forgiveness way before Jesus.
I'm kind of confused why. I guess I'm just wondering why you focus so much on like the Bible's interpretation of the concept
Doing
of
to others as
forgiveness
you would do
because
unto to
it's
you is way before Jesus.
well,
I
yeah,
mean,
but Jesus is a pretty bad example of that in a lot of ways. But like,
How?
there's a lot of other historical figures that you could look at that are like real people that forgave. Yeah, so let's just go to examples that Jesus gives. So, uh, in a parable, he speaks about, you can take this literally or not, he would like, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this without looking at the story, but wow, I chose the most obsolete one that I could possibly choose, but I'm gonna go for it since I've committed. So Jesus curses a fig tree, which is a pretty big dick move. Like that's a really dick move right there. If we're going through it, because at the time, fig trees in the area would have actually been extremely valuable and actually like the main thing that kept your family alive and provided for you. And when Jesus doesn't get a fig back, like when he commands it to behave, it doesn't. So he walks over to the farmer's fig tree and goes, no, and it just dies. No more fig tree. That's a pretty awful thing to do to a person's fig tree because it didn't do what you said.
Well, okay, so
I don't
of
know why I
course,
chose that one. It's just a funny one.
right. I mean, of course, like I can understand, that's like a common example, many people use,
Sorry to
you know, and,
interrupt. Have you
and I
done any
can
reading
totally,
yet?
Is it?
well, okay, so I can totally see,
Have
like
you
where
done
you're
any
coming
reading
from.
yet, Pat?
Many,
So I suggest you be quiet and go away and do some.
I was about to respond
Go
to his
ahead.
claim.
Yeah.
No, but you failed to respond to any of mine, so I suggest you go away and
No,
do that
what are you
first.
talking about? Just let him
Bob, I
respond. Oh
literally
my God.
responded to you. I was going
Hey,
to read your
Bob,
article. What?
let him respond, please.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm letting him respond. He's not letting me
Yeah,
respond.
no,
I
Pat,
literally
go
responded to him
ahead.
in
Pat,
chat.
go ahead. Pat, go
First
ahead.
off, Bob, I responded to you in chat that I was going to read your article. And to internet, I was going to say, that's a common, example many people use. I like to say, one, that's an example that Jesus uses, for, one of his, parables. It's an example that he uses to, non-believers, to people that, don't have faith, that, if you don't have faith, then you're going to be, you know, killed or whatever. But also, it also reminds us of the creation story of Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve used fig leaves to cover themselves from God in Genesis when they were ashamed after they had eaten of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So it's kind of, a callback to Genesis, as well as being a lesson for for the people who read the Bible.
Gotcha. So let's talk about some other ones then. We talk about Mark 141. I'm just going through the tabs of my Bible here. He got upset when a leper asked for help to be healed. That was
What
a
if
bit of a dick
he?
move.
I
Yeah, the
don't
leper
think he
is
got
asking
accept.
to be healed, and he gets mad about it.
Please
We
read the
could go to
verse.
the part where,
Read the
hang
verse.
on, let me open this one. So in Matthew 15:21 through 28, what are my notes here? Let me just double check what it's actually saying here. I'm just skimming it. Oh yeah, this is the one where a woman who's not a Jew asks for him to help her daughter, and he calls her a dog and then says, "No, I won't do it because you're not a Jew." But then after she calls herself a dog and begs at his feet, he does it. So that's really forgiving of him to do it after the woman calls herself a dog, after he calls her a non-Jew dog. That's a really forgiving thing. That's what I'd expect out of a savior, right? He just up and commands it. I'm just like literally going through like color-coded tabs in my Bible, by the way. He just has his disciples just steal a donkey, and
They
then
don't
his
steal a
excuse about,
donkey.
yeah,
The
he just says,
the
take the donkey, it's okay,
Yeah, and
God
he gives it
says
to
do it.
them. He
Hang on,
gives it
was
to
it
them.
his donkey?
There are
Was it his donkey?
Okay, so
Was it his donkey?
yes, it was his donkey
About thou
because
It
shalt
was
not
not his
steal.
donkey.
the man who raised the donkeys believed he was the Messiah. Therefore, if his apostles asked for the donkey for their Messiah for Palm Sunday, of course he would give them
So
the
hang
donkey.
on, Pat. So he didn't ask for it.
Yes, he
He
wait a
didn't
minute.
did.
actually truly know the man.
He is
Yes, he-
God. He created everything. Therefore, he owns everything. Therefore, it is actually his. I mean,
Yeah, so it's
simple
fine to just
logic.
take it.
I mean, he didn't steal anything. Everything is his.
Yeah, so like,
Such
so you're just excusing it by
I
saying,
mean, are you
well, he
shitting me
knew it
right
would be
now?
okay, but that's still, if I steal something and then just assume the person's going to be fine with it, that's still theft, right?
it's
No,
not
Yes,
no,
its
no,
stealing.
intention to
no,
permanently
no,
It's not
deprive
no,
stealing.
theft.
The man
no.
who owned the donkeys believed he was the Messiah.
Where
Did
does
he?
it say that?
Dude,
Where does it say
yes,
that?
it's like saying, if somebody who owns a business,
Where does it say that?
tells his employees
Yeah,
to
I'm just
go
wondering,
rent a
where does it say
car,
that?
Where in the Bible does
car.
it say that
No, but this is so
he gave his
semantics. We're
permission?
talking about Bible. We're talking about
Yes.
something beyond that.
No, we're
We're
not.
not talking about the book, okay?
No, we are.
Exactly. Like,
No, I don't hear voices in my head. I don't need, I would actually need to read a book to see that Jesus was a thing. I wouldn't get a vision. And then if I did, I think I was a little bit, I would probably go to a health facility or ask for support. But like, I'm literally
okay,
asking, where in the
so
text does it say that the dude was a really big fan of the Big J, and so he
it
was totally fine with stealing? And to
it
be clear,
doesn't okay, it
if
doesn't
I thought that
specifically
you were
say that.
fine, oh, okay, so it doesn't
Of
actually
course,
say it, you're
but
just
it
assuming?
says the people like knew and respected Jesus as, I mean, because that's why they all were,
Where does it say in the
hailing him as
verse?
king. Like,
Yeah, so
okay,
Pat,
so look,
why are you assuming?
let me ask you, what do you make of the Shroud of Turin or of Our
Oh
Lady of
God.
Guadalupe?
Oh
Oh
God.
no. Okay,
Just
so
curious,
Oh,
just
here,
curious,
please,
I'll
just
give a
don't go
curious.
short
there.
answer.
Take
Don't
some
know,
advice,
Bob.
Pat.
Do not
Pat,
know.
don't go
I'm
there.
asking internet. I'm just curious. What do
Yeah,
you make of that?
Pat,
Only
are
Don't
you
go
talking
internet.
to Our
there.
Lady that was weeping blood?
Doesn't exist.
fake.
It's fantasy.
Yeah,
Okay,
Fake.
Our Lady of
It's a
Guadalupe. You
fake.
can look at the.
yeah, I can
You
respond to
can
that,
look at the
Pat.
Oh,
cloak. Look at the
Pat, you
cloak.
don't need to preach it. I'll tell you.
The
please.
Shroud of Turin. Oh yeah,
I'll,
yes.
I'll tell you, Pat.
Tell me.
Yeah, so if we're talking about Our Lady, first of all, if we're talking about weeping statues, we know why those happen.
It's not a
You can just
statue. It's
look
not a
to the
statue.
side.
Our Lady of Guadalupe is not a statue. It is a image
Are
on
you
a
talking about the
cloak.
painting?
No, I'm talking about the image on the cloak that
Are
Saint
you
Juan
talking about the
Carlos
Shroud of
showed to the governor
Oh,
Turin?
of Mexico.
Oh my
please.
God.
Oh, please. But take some advice, Pat. You really don't want to go there because you've got a bunch
Our
of
Lady of
people that are
Guadalupe. What?
ringing you.
I,
You are
I
going to
mean, if
get
you want to
Look
talk
it
owned
about the
up.
more
Shroud,
than you do.
I can do it. Pat, I've
Okay,
read
okay. The
literally
Shroud of
every paper
Turin.
on the Shroud that is publicly available, like the
Go for
actual
it. The Shroud of
studies.
Turin.
Okay, so it is clearly and evidently a fraud. And if it wasn't a fraud, it would contradict the Gospels anyway. So I don't know why
How?
on earth you would want to claim it.
Wait, but
So you're
wait, but
telling me that Jesus
can
was
you please tell me
wrapped?
how it contradicts the Gospels?
Yeah, so Jesus was wrapped. So I'm just wondering where the
Right.
shroud came in because
So
the
it says
shroud
in the
was
Gospel
fairly
of John.
contradictory of what the Bible says.
No, okay, fair enough. But it says in the Gospel of John, it says when Mary Magdalene and the apostle whom Jesus loved went to go see like the tomb where Jesus was laid, the boulder was was like rolled over whatever, and then the angel was there, and the tunics and the cloth that Jesus was buried in was neatly folded where his body should be laying.
Yeah,
So
Pat,
therefore the
what that
shroud,
is. No, Pat, hang on. I'm
it
answering
says
your
in the
question.
Bible.
Pat, why are you like outbursting in response to me answering the question? What's the
Go
issue?
ahead, go argue.
Okay,
No, dude,
Pat, I'm
I
not
am
arguing.
responding
I'm
to your argument. I am
explaining.
Every time we
responding
give
to
you
your argument.
evidence, you deny it. And hence, proof denies faith. Sorry. Okay. We've given you evidence Please don't
I have
use this.
evidence in the Bible. Read the Bible. It
You
says in the Bible the tunic which
I
he
can
was
give you
laid in
evidence for
was
the
folded
existence of
neatly
Harry
in his
Potter. It doesn't make him
tomb.
any less
I
of
was
a
giving you a response.
But why does what the
please.
Bible says matter anyway? I mean, seriously, people?
It's the written word of
Okay,
God.
that's I don't even know how to respond to that. Um, as
Then I don't
someone
know how
who
to.
like follows the teaching of Christ, I have no idea how you would get there. But like Pat, what I'm getting at here
I
is
don't
you asked me a
follow the
question.
teaching.
You don't. Oh,
That's why.
okay, okay, Kimmy. Here is you were asking me about what the issue was, and I was laying it out, and you wouldn't even let me get it out.
I let
So
you get it
the
out.
issue with
I allowed
the
you
issue
to
with the
let it out.
claim, okay, the issue with the claim that you just made about the tunics and what and the cloth he was buried in. We know that the claims of the Bible include him being wrapped, not put in a shroud. A tunic is not a shroud. Those are very different things. He's very clearly wrapped. You can look at the Gospels for that. And so if there is now a shroud
Semantics.
introduced, this has
What's the
nothing to do.
point? Like, what does it matter about human, the,
Kimmy,
the,
I don't.
no. What does it matter about the condition of the human being? Like, what does that matter? How does that have like an influence on the
Kimmy,
condition of the human
I don't
being?
really. I don't really. mm, I'll defer to you believe in reality, but I have nothing to really say to Kimmy. I don't know what to
But
do with
still,
that.
answer my question. What does that have to do with the condition of a human being? Please
I
Because
have
tell me.
no idea what.
We know the shroud was a fake from about 1300. So
Yeah, but like it is 100. It is a fake. There's nothing
yeah,
about it. That
yeah.
and the only claims that would like try to contradict it ru- are undercut by the very claims that they make to try to undercut the scientific evidence. Like there's nothing about the shroud that works. Like everything about it is wrong.
And you know what? That's so important for me being a human being. Like, that's the message that I want to look at. I want to look at the shroud. Like, how does that affect me? Make
It
me a better
doesn't. It doesn't,
person.
Kimmy. But I mean, some people get really into it, like it's a real
Yeah.
thing. So
Kimmy,
Yeah,
we're having
but
two
that's why I'm
separate
trying to bring it
conversations
back.
here.
I'm like,
yeah,
Some
well,
people who
what about
worship
it?
some people who worship the God of the Bible and believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ, um, think that the Bible is important. I'm
Okay,
not sure
well,
why this is
Kim, Kim,
but
revelatory, but like,
could you tell me the most important teachings of the Bible that affect your life on a personal
in the
level?
Lord your God, that is the
Kimmy,
number one command of the Bible.
Kimmy, if all that impacts you or you think that should be gotten out of the Bible and Christ is forgiveness and loving one another and taking care of each other, that is absolutely great and wonderful. And no one here
No.
probably
What I'm
objects with any of that.
No, but
The
what
the
I'm saying
problem
is, would you
let me
tell?
finish. The problem comes in and what we're talking about here and discussing is the abject faith without evidence in this God of the Bible that Christians use, the majority of Christians use, to make reason to interject their faith and force others and try to force other people to follow their principles and beliefs. It's not that they're trying to tell people to forgive and be nice to each other and stuff. That's not the issue. The
I
point
mean,
is
okay,
the
go ahead.
other parts that they're trying to enforce on other people because of their faith.
yes,
So if you want to
I mean,
believe that forgiveness is great and loving one another is great, that is awesome. I applaud you for it, and that exists in lots of other religions and Hinduism, Buddhism, and Muslim and et cetera, et
I
cetera.
mean,
That part is great, but the problem is that you can't throw out all the bad stuff just because you don't like it. And that's what other Christians struggle with, is that all this other bad stuff that's in there, like the hate against people because of the people they want to love, is just horrible. Let's get rid of it.
Wait,
We don't need
what
that.
people? What people are you talking about? The
Christians.
people that. Okay, so you're saying you feel hate because people don't believe in you, so you feel hate.
No,
Christians
Christians are using the
in general
Bible to justify hatred against people like gay people or LGBT, or they've used it against interracial marriage. They've used it against numbers. They've used it against other types of Christians.
They've used it against
Wait,
women's
wait.
equality
That
too.
is all
All right,
horrible.
so what Londo said. How do you feel about that? Everybody else.
It's
I
horrible.
agree. Jesus tells slaves that they should be slaves,
Obey
which
your
is
masters.
like that's a really big issue for me. Is that the Jesus of the Bible is a-okay with slavery, and I
Render
mean
unto
if
Caesar
he's
Wait.
what is
if he's cool with the
Caesar's.
old law, then he's a-okay. Hang on,
Whoa.
Kimmy. Then he's also
Okay.
okay. He also is clearly okay with the old laws, which say that you can just beat the living daylights out of a slave as long as they don't unalive within a couple of
Is
days.
that what you believe?
No,
Well,
that's
that's
what the
what the Bible
Bible tells
says.
you.
It's what
So
Jesus
do
directly
people believe
endorses.
that? Do people believe that
We're
having a
not
slave is
Christians. I
okay?
don't know. We
Yes,
don't believe
people
it. No.
use the Bible to justify slavery for years and years. They've stopped doing that because it's mostly globally accepted that slavery is morally not okay. So they've stopped using the Bible to argue it. But when the question came up, the Bible was used to justify slavery.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well then the Bible's wrong. Okay? That's my
Right.
point.
Yes.
Why
And
do you believe in that? Like
that's why we're
that
having
is
this
so upsetting.
discussion and
You
saying the
can't prove
Bible's
it.
wrong, the shroud of Turin is fake, the ark that was found, or the pillars of salt or basalt in the Middle East that is
The
Sodom
Ark
and
of the
Gomorrah and
Covenant in
stuff is all
Ethiopia.
fake. The
It's not.
supposed chariot wheels and stuff that are actually wheels from a boat found in the Red Sea are fake and not evidence of the parting of the Red Sea and all that stuff. Like
Yeah, but we're talking
there's
about
tons of evidence that
slavery
Christians
being
bring
right.
up that they
How is
quote
that
as
right?
It's
quote
not.
as evidence, and
It's not. And
false.
it never was. It's not, and it never was. But the Bible is full of justifications of the ownership of one person by
Well,
another.
that's what I'm saying. It's wrong. It's old. It's undated. It's outdated. That's why it's
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly what we're saying.
That's like if you got a cookbook that had a really great recipe for meatloaf and you made that meatloaf and it was just awesome to die for, but the next recipe over had a pasta that included arsenic in it.
Or babies.
And the next recipe over had some other poisons or whatever in it. You know, you could go on and on. But the next recipe was really great and this was awesome and stuff. You wouldn't suggest that cookbook to someone else because you know in there that there is poisons in there that would kill them, right? So you throw out the whole cookbook because even though it has some good recipes, now if you can rip that good stuff out and ignore all the bad stuff, great. But you keep the good, throw away the bad, and you don't just say the whole book is good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what Thomas Jefferson did, right? He took the teachings of Jesus that he liked, and he took out all the supernatural stuff, cut them out literally.
Including the bits where you could own people because of the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Wait, so who did that? Could you
Thomas
say his name
Thomas
again?
Jefferson. Look up the Jefferson
Oh,
Bible.
Thomas Jefferson. Oh,
The
yeah.
Jefferson Bible, because you can actually
He's the,
you can get a download of that just has those parts of it. So
yeah, he's the man.
You could
I
also
have
look
issues
at
with it because it just has issues.
you could also look at faith and practice, which is a Quaker text.
It was
Give
pretty
that a
easy to
read.
put the slave Bible together because the Bible is so incredibly
Full of it.
pro-slavery.
It's full of it.
Well, as long as you're not a wealthy Jew,
Yeah.
in
Oh,
which
no,
case
sorry. A
you shouldn't
wealthy
be.
Jewish man.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
We must
But
go
other
get
than
the
that,
sisters in here as well. The
God
justification
is
of patriarchy.
100% on board with it.
And
He not only condones slavery, he's totally cool with you just beating your slaves.
and
God of the
But
Bible,
also
but but
100%
exactly.
stamp of
That's
including
approval.
your wife,
I mean
who is considered
that's
by the
what
Bible to basically be another version of a slave.
I mean. That's my point. When Thomas Jefferson lived, that's what was happening. Is it
Yeah.
right? Does it make it right?
No.
I mean, obviously we've progressed and
Well,
like
that's why
realized that
we
no,
make
it's not
the
right.
argument that
So
there is no such thing as objective morality too. So, and
exactly.
it's not just moral if God says it is.
I
So
mean,
do you think that killing
hence,
people is
therefore,
moral?
the entire Bible. It was built.
No, the Bible does, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was written back in
No, I was
freaking who
addressing what
knows when.
Pat just said.
Yeah.
I don't believe that killing people is right, but the Bible does.
Right.
Supports it all the way
Where does it
through.
say
Oh,
that?
exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and
Where does it
anytime
say?
that anytime that God directly says go for it, or if the ancient, I would say kind of like pre-Jewish, but like if the ancient Jewish people wanted to just oops an entire people's, God was 100% on board with them. That
Absolutely.
he
God's
well, I
chosen
mean, to be
people.
clear, he didn't say get rid of all of them. He does, oddly enough, say only keep the young girls who are virgins alive.
Yeah.
The rest
Of
of them
course
just
he
get rid
did.
of.
Oh
So,
yeah.
like, I would consider that to be a bad thing and a pretty gross thing.
And because
But
he had a penis, just saying.
like the Christian faith is technically, it's not just an okay thing. If God is all moral, you have to celebrate that. God, I would say raise your hands to the sky and praise the fact that that happened.
No,
Do it
no,
publicly
no.
too.
No, I'm going to break down what all moral means. I'm going to break it down. I want to know what exactly he's talking about. I'm not going to accept anything verbatim. I want to know. Tell me what
We're not
exactly.
preaching to you, Kimmy. We're not trying to persuade you. We are not Christians.
Yeah.
Other than
And
that
Kimmy, how else could that be other than what it says? Like, it can't be a metaphor for anything else other than, like, this is what God is commanding, or they're using it as propaganda, but they're saying God said, go do this.
I mean, I think what I'm saying overall is that I've just found so many things that I've been betrayed about. And I'm sorry, host. I know I've been a pain in the ass.
You're okay.
But like when I've tried to discover all the things I've been betrayed about,
It hurts. It really
it
hurts.
hurts, man.
And
It hurts.
I think personally, I think forgiveness is the one of the reasons that Christianity is as popular as it is, in despite of all this other negative stuff that it has.
And honestly,
So
Kimmy, I wish all the Christians in the world, especially in America, would actually be more forgiving, because I really think this country would be better if they actually followed forgiveness.
I mean, forgiveness is like a life-changing moment in your life. But I had the luxury of spending 6 months where I would dive into myself and was able to apply that and meditate on it and think about it. And but I don't think,
Right on.
nobody has that luxury, but I did. And so I was able to have a really long time on just pondering the idea of forgiving my my elders, my mom, my dad, myself as a mother to my kids, and but so if I was in charge, if I was like the ruler, I would allow everybody to have like 6 months where they could just ponder their existence and and delve deep into themselves and consider all these options, because the options are are so incredible and they have so much weight on the rest of our lives. Like, that changed my life so much for the better. And people, like, now I'm working at 9 to 5. I feel like I'm the walking dead. Okay. Like, I'm just going to work. Like, I don't give a shit about my work because I don't have like a career that I love. I'm just like working to work. But I mean, and some people have that their whole lives, but if I had to do that my whole life, like, I'd lose my mind. I'd jump off a bridge, because what's the point, Like, there has to be something meatier than that, like more with more meat to chew on,
I
like.
mean, I hear you, and I'm glad you found something that's helpful. But I think it's very important that we tell people that if that's what's going on in your life, there are so many paths to seek help, assistance, to grow. You don't need to jump to those extremes. It's like I fully support like more absurdist ideals, which just says there's no point to anything objectively. Stare into the madness, hop into the clown car, and giggle the whole way down the road. Like, you create your own
Mhm.
meaning. It's cool. Like, we don't have to surrender to it.
I mean, you're probably right, and I'm just a little bit like autistic, so there's like
Kimmy,
only one way I believe, but I
you're
agree with you.
free. You can do whatever you want. You are free to do whatever you want and make whatever you want from your life. That's true freedom. You make your own whatever makes you happy. It's in
Yeah,
your hands.
and to the degree that we are, in really in practical life a little more restricted, you can always define a road and take step by step toward some place you'd want to be, a career you want or whatever. So there's always being stuck is not a permanent thing if that's a reality that you're in at the moment. We all spend time in careers and short term, financial restrictions and stuff like that. But having to make just a little bit progress toward um, a future goal, week by week, month by month, whatever it takes, gives you a real sense of accomplishment and that you're headed in the right direction, someplace you want to be going.
And you can take whatever path you need. You can define a meaning and just take it, or if you just want to.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Pat? Or do you get down with the idea that atheists can hold morals and live an awesome and fulfilling life?
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, I think. Look, I mean, I know, I'm, Catholic or whatever. I know it probably seems, that to me, if like it seems like living a life of God is super important, but no, I mean, I think if you're an atheist, you can live a totally like a totally moral life, a totally fulfilling life. I mean, I don't think moralism is subjective at all. I just think that there is some kind of a definitive moralism within the world, but I don't think it depends on a certain group of people or whatever. I think I mean, I think atheists can totally get to heaven. I mean, I don't know.
That's an interesting notion.
Except for the last sentence. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
you know,
last sentence isn't really Catholic doctrine per se.
yeah.
How not? Catholics believe if you look, man. Look, man. I know it doesn't seem like it to like an outsider of the Christian faith, but literally, like
You're
we believe
conflating two things
if you're
here.
not subjected to the Christian faith, whatever, if you live a good life, if you serve others, you live a good life of goodwill. I mean, there's a heaven for you.
No,
There,
there
there,
isn't.
there is no
It's
there.
not purely. It's not
There really
purely
isn't.
based on. It's not purely based on.
Pat,
You
Pat,
know.
Pat. There is no heaven. What the being good in this life is the end goal. That is the end in of itself. To be a good person, to be kind to others, to be considerate of
So
others. That is
do
the end point. That is the
You're the
reason.
Catholic
you?
That is
then.
the reason we do good things. It's goodness
I
for
Do
mean,
things
goodness
because
sake.
we're human
and
beings
Okay,
and we are
for sure.
and
innately
Do
good.
Do you guys believe that like once you die, like that's the end. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's nothing after. There's no
Yes.
afterlife. There's
Yes.
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like
What
to.
so
I'd like
what
to think
what
there
led
is
you to believe
there's
this?
nothing.
Like what led you to believe this belief?
Because everything
To,
dies. Everything dies. It's just
Evidence.
very simply.
yeah, we have no
Everything dies.
evidence of anything after physical life. After that, there is no evidence whatsoever of anything else.
There is
I mean,
one tiny microscopic thing called the tardigrade, which does not seem to age. Everything else seems to die.
yeah,
Plants,
Pretty neat little
animals,
dude.
like a
every
leaf.
person in history, everything dies. It's just how physics works.
We become
Like
another form of energy, and mostly organic energy when we are either heat energy when we are combusted, or chemical energy when we what's the word we decay.
we
mold.
join the earth
like a
and the
leaf.
atmosphere again, CO2
Yes.
and oxygen and all our little minerals, and they
Back
become
to
parts
carbon.
of trees and plants and the water cycle and everything else. Just like
We
just
come
like
from-
us before.
We came from nothing. We go back to nothing. What
Yeah.
we lost? Nothing.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
concepts of
So I mean,
comforting like
even the
Christianity is really cool, and if you are convinced that it's true, like that wasn't really that had nothing to do with me or I think anyone else here leaving, but like I mean, it would be kind of neat if there was just infinite pleasure and joy for well, I don't know if eternal anything is good,
yeah,
but like
smoke that pipe, brother.
It would
eh,
be lovely.
I mean,
But they're in
the
it.
big problem to me with saying like atheists are immoral and Christians are moral and stuff like that
That's
is
such bullshit.
is the dichotomy, or not dichotomy, but the issue I have with it is that like atheists have a reason to be good, and that's because they only believe in this existence. They don't believe in this super higher power that's just going to forgive them or anything. And if you look on the other side, you can say, well, if I'm a Christian and I believe there's this higher power that's going to forgive me no matter, because I'm sinful nature and I can do things wrong, whatever, that kind of leads you to the path of, well, I can do where the hell I want, and I'm just going to be forgiven and it's all good and I have life eternal in heaven. So it doesn't really matter if I screw stuff up right now because, hey, I got this, pony in the sky that's just going to forgive me. Whereas atheist point of view is like the life on earth as we live right now is what matters, and we need to be good and stuff now for us, for our progeny, and so on. So it's we have to live in the here and now.
And also, why would I need a religion to tell me to be a good person? Like, why? I don't need that. Like,
No, you
I'm a
don't.
good person.
Absolutely.
I'm kind to other people. I help them. Like, I care about people. None of that
No.
is because of a religious text whatsoever. I care about myself. Like, I'm a mother. I think about the fact that maybe every single human being I could have birthed. I'm just saying, like, in like a large view of things, like, so I feel like every single human being, like even this ugly old fart with like bad breath. I'm like, dude, you could have been my son, you
Yep.
know?
Somebody's
And
son.
like, why are you fucked up right now? Like, what can I do to help you? You
Yeah.
know, it's just it's beyond, way beyond any order from any religious text. Like, you don't have to tell me to buy a sleeping bag for this homeless guy who's a good guy who I know that I talk to. He never steals, you know. He collects cans and bottles, and he buys his alcohol, but he buys it with money that he earns. So I bought him a sleeping bag, you know, and I tried to help him get into. I'm trying to help him get into a shelter that is by no means driven by me, by any religious belief. It's
That's
because
empathy.
I care about a
It's
person.
humanity.
That's it.
Your
It's
inherent
human
empathy.
beings.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
one of the
But
things that upsets me when Christians come along at all. Not just Christians, because when we've talked a lot about Christianity, but it's the organized faith of which I am aware. There might be others which aren't, where it comes along and says you cannot be moral. I think morality is innate to human beings. I think
Of
that's how we
course,
have
yeah.
evolved, right? But what my problem is when people come along and go, we are the ones who decide what your morality is. We tell you what your morality is. And if you don't follow our morality, there will be consequences.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
those
like, no,
consequences
no,
will
bro, you
not
got
be
it
good
all
consequences.
wrong. Not you, but them.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, that's why
That's
expansionism
precisely
is
what we're saying.
dangerous.
And I would answer you were talking about forgiveness, which is great. As a concept that people, when somebody does something bad to you, if you can bring yourself to forgive that person, that's fantastic. And that's wonderful. But what I would suggest to you is that the doctrine of forgiveness within the Christian church has been used to justify the utterly unjustifiable, right? The idea that you can
Oh,
go to
yeah.
someone, the
Oh,
idea that
yeah.
you can go to someone in a little box and say, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned," and then you tell the
Oh,
sin,
that's a bunch
and
of
that's
bullshit.
forgiven. That's what the Christian church teaches, and that has been used
Yeah.
not only when people went to confession, what they confessed to was then passed on. And I'm going to go back. I'm sorry. I realize I'm obsessed with Spain, but hey, I live here. People went to the confession. They confessed to the priest, and they might have confessed, oh, I don't know, to being a member of a trade union. Right? That priest then told the local authorities, and those people were then taken away to a ditch and were unalived. Right? After the dictatorship ended in 1975, there was this thing called the Agreement to Forget, and it was based on the thing that, oh well, you know, we've got to forgive people for what happened in the past. And since 1975, the fact that a regime unalived hundreds of thousands of its own people has been covered up because, oh, we've got to forgive one another now. And I would, you asked the question, how has this idea of forgiveness impacted on reality, on people's lives? It has had an incredibly negative impact on the lives of millions of people. The idea that, oh, you've got to forgive, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the Christian thing to do. You didn't forgive people who had a different political opinion to you when you took them into outside a village and unalived that person, did you? You didn't forgive them. And I'm not having to go. I'm talking down to Pat again.
The other thing that really gets me is that you have these organized religions like the Roman Catholic Church and stuff like that that are huge and have persisted for a long time. In my line of thinking, if there was this, super powerful entity, omniscient God, whatever it might be, right? And maybe he didn't want to reveal himself. So after Christ, he was like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to like hide and require people to believe me in faith and stuff like that. That, I, as this omniscient being, would sit there and observe what's going on. And when stuff happened in the church that was representing me, this organization that was representing me, and it was atrocious, I would step in and do something. And even if I still didn't want to reveal myself directly, there are ways I could go about that and stop that from happening. Maybe not beforehand, depend on your beliefs on timeline and stuff, but at least stop it from continuing to happen. So you look at current stuff which is going on with the Catholic Church and the molestation and stuff like that, and it's also occurs in the Baptist Church and all this stuff. But like that would be something that I would step in, and like anyone who's doing that would immediately, like, their finances would whittle away, and all the tithing would go away. People would feel disinclined to go to that church. But none of that sort of thing happens, right? The stuff you can't prove or give evidence of, that this was orchestrated by God, like that would be kind of evidence that there's something that's keeping this church on the right footing, but that doesn't happen. If what I'm saying makes sense,
I'm not sure exactly, but I mean, obviously, that is absolutely wrong. It should not happen. And because there's like a political, religious agenda that absolves these people of what they've done, is absolutely wrong on just a moral, a human
It
level,
happens
aside from
over and
religious.
over and over and over again. And before anyone thinks I'm particularly hating on Catholics, Protestants do it all the time. Protestants, you look at any, I'm pretty sure if you look at almost any organized religion, you will ultimately find really bad news going on within those organizations.
And you're also
You will
talking
find it
about
among,
like
Buddhists, things that
Boy
happen
Scouts.
in supposedly Buddhist countries are appalling, are absolutely outrageous.
Humans are fucks, man. They're just
No, I don't
fucks,
think
man.
they are. I think we're constantly told that we can be like this, but I don't think in our nature that we are. But the thing is, we've been lied to for probably about 12,000 years, that we are just animals
What do
and
you
we need to be
mean?
controlled and told what to do. And, innately, things that we most people consider to be immoral are innately, biologically not good for us. It is not in our interest as a species, for example, to unalive other people, other members of our own species. It's not in our biological interest, for
Yeah,
example,
but what
to
about
kill and eat
rape?
members of our own species.
Yeah.
It just isn't. It
But
is
what
not
about
in our
rape and SAA?
biological interests as a species to engage in reproduction with
No.
immediate members of our close members of our family. These are all things that are biologically harmful to us. And as an animal, we are evolved not to do those things. And when
But
somebody
rape
comes along and
happens.
says,
I
"Oh,
mean, what are you
you can do
saying?
this because God says it's okay in this particular circumstance," it's actually how religion is used to overcome our innate morality, and not to give us a morality when we actually need to be controlled and told what
Well,
to do.
why do you need to be
Because
told that's wrong by
I
religion?
don't. That's
I'm
not
not
what we're
saying
saying.
you. I'm just saying people. I'm sorry. I'm not saying
Well,
you.
you probably need to ask Pat this question and not us.
Well, it's just, I think it's just simply that people are culturally habituated to it, that they are taught for generations that they have to get their morals from a book and from a religion, and many people in religion don't even think otherwise, or don't even think that something else is even possible, and they just don't have the education to understand that it's just as simple as the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them
I
do to
mean,
you, kind of a thing.
Well, I think it's
I mean,
more
where
for
do
than
we get
that.
the
you,
I
I
golden
think
feel
rule
like
it's
from, though?
it's a cop out, and I feel like only because men have balls, like they have testosterone, that there's like this driving force that potentially makes them abusive in that level, and there is no need for any uh moral like a book to tell us what to do. Like, it's innate in us. Like, we
Yeah.
know it's
well,
wrong.
Also,
Like,
it
do
leads them
we
to not
do
want to
we
ever admit that they're wrong. So,
yeah,
anyways,
I,
folks, I'm gonna
yeah.
wrap up here for 3.5 hours. So, it's been a really good night. I want to thank everybody here tonight.
I know,
man,
host,
thank
I've been
you.
like a thorn in your side. I'm sorry. Thanks
No,
for having me,
I
though.
mean, anybody who comes along, it becomes like you and Pat tonight, who becomes sort of a a spark, if you will, of the conversation, is a very valuable person to have around. So I appreciate it, and I feel like we got to know you a little bit better tonight, and that's a really good thing. That's cool.
Well, thank you. I'd love to come back. You don't have to bring me up if I'm a pain in the ass. I'll just be in the comments, but I followed everybody.
I try, I let people up as I can. I try to keep one seat open so I can bring new people through, kind of a thing. So I apologize to Londo. Londo got hit one at one point. And then the second drop, Londo, that was not me. I don't know what happened there, but
It was
there was
God. It
it
was
was
God
God.
himself.
But then there was an opening again, so I brought you back in, and
Yeah, there's no worries, man. No worries.
so we're doing okay.
When are you likely to be on again?
I'm on every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7:30 Pacific.
Right.
So I'll be
It's
on
always a pleasure to see
next
you,
time
Bill.
on Monday.
Let's
As
all
long as
party at
his computer's
Doug's
not
party
broke.
tomorrow.
Uh,
Doug's party.
yeah, enjoy tomorrow. So
Did you hear about that?
no, what party?
It's like Doug's party. It's like a whole thing.
No, is that
It was,
TikTok the event or what?
yeah. It was like this older gentleman wrote a letter to his neighbors, and he said, "Would you come to my party for my birthday? It's gonna
Oh, how
start at
cool!
4. It's gonna go until the cops arrive." So it was like the internet, like literally
Sounds like a
all
blast.
over the
All right.
entire country. Like everybody's having a party for Doug tomorrow at
Oh,
4
that is fun.
p.m.
That is fun. Every now
Yeah,
and then we hear
yeah, it's
about
really
stuff
We'll
like
good.
build
that. That's
party
fun.
until the cops get there. Right. Okay.
All
Yeah,
righty. Well, let's go
yeah.
to Doug's party. I've got some other work to do. So you guys.
Hasta
See you, Jim.
luego. I
Have a
gotta go
good
to
night.
work too.
All right. Good night,
All right.
everybody.
Good night. Good
Stay kind
night.
to
Thank you
Kind
so
to
much.
each other. Take care. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.